Everybody's shaking their head yes. So I will pull up my document here and welcome to the June 17th, 2025 meeting of the Planning Board. First, we'll take roll call to introduce board members and staff. Mike Derdarian, you're on mute.
Tough start. I am present.
Maureen Collins-White.
Present.
Sean Weller.
Here.
I'm Ellen Rawlings. I'm also here. We're also joined by Elijah Romulus, our town planner, Amanda Wolf, our housing and land use planner, Nora Lockmain, our director of economic and community development, Jess Cole, our recording secretary, and Charlotte Lynch from Westwood Media. Sorry, got to go back to my other screen here. This meeting is recorded by Westwood Media Center and broadcast live on local cable television Comcast Channel 6 and Verizon Channel 42. Meetings are also live on the Westwood Media Center's YouTube channel. If you're interested in joining the meeting via Zoom, you can find the login directions in the Planning Board meeting notice that is posted to the calendar section of the town's webpage at https://www.townhall.westwood.ma.us/. We will begin the meeting with only the board members and staff unmuted and on video. As the chair recognizes individuals to speak, we will unmute them. Board members may choose to mute themselves when they are not speaking in order to minimize background noise. For applications, the chair will first invite the applicant to address the board and give a presentation summarizing what is being requested. Board members receive the application materials prior to the meeting and will have reviewed them. Board members may ask questions during and following the presentation. Staff and outside experts will provide comments to the board. For agenda items that are not a public hearing, the opportunity for public comment will be at discretion of the board chair. For agenda items that are for a public hearing, the public will be given an opportunity to comment after board discussion. Public comment will only be read or heard once the chair has opened the public comment period. The chair will ask for any final public comments before closing public comment. During public comment, attendees may use the raise hand feature to speak or type a question in the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. Attendees will not be on video, but will be unmuted if called on during the public comment portion. To raise your hand, click on the raise hand icon at the bottom of the screen and wait for the host to call on and unmute you. You may then click lower hand once you've been called on. For those participating by phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9. Once unmuted, please identify yourself by stating your name and address for the record. Please direct all comments and questions through the chair and only have one person speaking at a time. Those making public comments will have 3 minutes to speak. All people will be given the opportunity to speak, but in the interest of time and fairness, repetitive or off-topic comments may be limited. Additionally, comments may be submitted by email or regular mail prior to the meeting. When we come to that part of the meeting, I will remind everyone of the process. Following the public comment portion, the board will deliberate and make a decision or continue the hearing to a specific future date. All remote meetings require that votes be taken by roll call. When a motion and a second has been made, the chair will ask if there's any further discussion before proceeding to a roll call vote and will then restate the results of the vote. All right. Still no Phil?
Not seeing him, but I'll keep an eye out.
All right. All right. Then, Elijah, are there any changes to our agenda this evening?
No changes to the agenda.
All right, then our first agenda item is Canton Street Sidewalk Project, pre-application meeting for consideration of a scenic road approval on Canton Street Sidewalk Project. If we have folks representing the design team and or the applicants. Welcome.
Thank you.
We have Marianne LeBlanc Cummings and Steve Rasky, the co-chairs of the Canton Street Project Working Group, joining us this evening. Oh, Nora, I see Nora, you have your hand up. You're muted, Nora. Okay. I think I did
from my end, yeah.
Yeah, I did see that Maureen, I believe she recused herself for this discussion. Okay.
That's correct.
Okay. That may have been what Nora was raising her hand about, maybe not, but just to
Yes.
explain why Maureen is no longer on screen, she recused herself for this discussion.
Sorry, that's exactly what I was trying to explain. I couldn't get my mute button to go off. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you, though. You're seeing your hand raised reminded me to mention that, so thank you. All right, welcome to the folks from the Canton Street Project Working Group, and I'll hand the floor over to the two of you to share what you'd like to share with us this evening.
Thank you so much, Ellen. And as a preliminary matter, I believe John Rockwell should be also added as a presenter, if that's possible, please. And
Just promoted him.
Wonderful. Thank you, Amanda. So thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to address the board tonight, and good evening, everyone. By way of some brief background, since January of 2024, Steve Rafsky and I have been co-chairing the Canton Street Working Group with representation from the community, from the Pedestrian and Bicycle Advisory Committee, and also from the Planning Board. And we thank Planning Board Chair Ellen Rawlings for her service on the working group, and all of the members of the Canton Street Working Group for their substantial public service to the town. The Canton Street project is about trying to solve for safety, for lower vehicle speeds, and also trying to solve for the reality that, ironically, Canton Street, which is a scenic road, has become a cut-through street. The working group has made recommendations which are intended to minimize the overall scope of the project, mitigate its impacts, and maintain the scenic character of the street. So part of this process has been to work with the MassDOT leadership. And because of that, we've been able to make significant changes to the project, which Steve and our design engineer, John Rockwell from Tech, who is with us, will talk about. MassDOT has been responsive to the goal to restore Canton Street from a cut-through street to a safe and scenic road. We asked to come before you tonight because we would like your guidance as to the scenic road process, and your feedback will be very valuable as we continue to work with MassDOT. Thank you again very much for this opportunity, and I will now turn this over to Steve Rafsky for his comments.
Thank you, Mary Ann, and let me first say
Sorry.
it's been a pleasure.
Before I interrupt, I do see Joe, and I'm going to say this incorrectly, I apologize, Cohen, the tech landscape architect, looks like he would like to be brought in as well for the discussion.
Terrific. Thank you.
Just promoted him.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt you, Steve.
No problem. What I was going to say is it's actually been very much a pleasure to co-chair the working group with Mary Ann. And it's also been a pleasure to work with those people the select board appointed to the working group. To be very candid, and Ellen, you've been there, we don't always agree, but we're a group of dedicated volunteers and town folk who are driven and who are respectful. As the planning board members may know, I served on this board for over 20 years. I appreciate how much the planning board does for the town. It's nice to be before you to seek your advice and your input. Just to reiterate a little bit of what Mary Ann just said, we're here today as we'll be moving into a further design phase that will also focus on scenic road considerations. And therefore your input is critical to make this a more efficient next phase of the process. Also, to give you a little background, in September of 2023, a previous plan was reviewed at a very well-attended hearing. The vast majority of residents who came out did so to speak against that plan. And by the way, I was one of those residents. What that did was cause the select board to think about how to involve the community, and they created the Canton Street Working Group. I personally volunteered as I believe we could improve the plans such that it would meet several criteria. first and foremost to enhancing public safety, providing more effective traffic calming, providing non-vehicular access, and also maintaining the character of our street. I live on Canton Street. I do care about that very much, all of those things very much. Additionally, I believed that we could provide a process to enhance public awareness and even support for a comprehensive Canton Street plan. During the first couple of months of our working group activity, I want the planning board to know that we looked at everything, every option we could think of. Having only a sidewalk, narrowing the street to diminish impacts, having the shared use path switch between sides of the street, meaning some sections on the westerly side, other sections on the easterly side. I could go through more and more things we did. We came up with the plan that we've been talking about at this level, it's roughly a 25% design level. That we've accomplished many, many things. To list some of those things so you can hear what we focused on is to first of all, get the project totally within the right-of-way of the town. We've removed grass buffers, which is a big thing, which I'll come back to in a minute about getting through to the state level, but removing grass buffers wherever we could to narrow the impact from a neighborhood and scenic road look. That includes areas like Adams Street to 240 Canton Street. We shifted alignment up to 2 feet to the west between Courier Lane and Kilronan Road, again, to keep it in the right-of-way and to minimize impacts. Grass buffers between 396 Street, Canton Street and Partridge were removed for the same reasons. Alignment of a foot or more to the west between 371 Canton Street and Everett Street. We removed the raised medians at Everett Street intersection and shifted we're adding a raised medians and intersection rather, and we're shifting alignment west up to 485 Canton Street. We're not asking to remember all of these things. I just want you to know there's just so many things. It's a 2-mile stretch. This new project, the new plan will have raised crosswalks all up and down the raised crosswalks have been added to allow access from those on the westerly side of the street to the easterly side where the shared path will be. What does all this mean? 2 years ago, this had 61 walls being moved. Now it's 31. And for walls being moved over 10 feet, it's only down to 7 now, which is a huge, why all of those things I was going through and what we were trying to do, minimize impacts, try to keep the road narrow for traffic calming and character. And that got us to roughly a 25% design plan. Now we need to advance the engineering. And what we're really focused on is street infrastructure, but more importantly to tonight, landscaping and traffic calming. Many of the changes I've noted were the result of collaboration with the members of our working group and also with negotiations of Mass DOT. So what are we looking for in a discussion tonight? Let me raise a few things. Obviously, the project will require the removal of trees and the movement of walls, and that's critical to the scenic roads process. That being said, our plan is to replace trees with as mature of trees as we can, and with more trees than are being removed. With the addition of a shared pedestrian and bicycle path, we're also considering mitigating the visual impact by coloring the materials being used to blend in more to the landscape. With regard to traffic calming, because it's such a key objective, we'll be adding several raised crosswalks along the almost 2-mile stretch of Canton Street. And we've avoided widening the road, considering the impact doing so would have to the nature of the street. With that as a lead-in, I'd like to ask John Rockwell of Tech to give a brief update of where we are, and I think he has some slides to show as well.
Let me just share my screen here. All right, so for those of you who may not have been closely involved with the working group process, just want to give a brief overview of the project design essentially as of the last working group meeting. Steve already touched on a few of these on a high level, so I'll walk through relatively quickly. Just to refresh your memory, the project limits the entire length of Canton Street from the East Street Rotary south to University Ave. It's about 1.9 miles. And some of the project goals, looking to calm traffic, as Steve mentioned, enhance safety for all users, pedestrians, cyclists, as well as vehicular drivers, create pedestrian accessibility and connectivity. Obviously, there's no sidewalk along Canton Street today. We want to provide connectivity to all those adjacent neighborhoods, provide a connected route to the Downey Street School, and then also to the commercial properties on University Ave. Want to minimize and mitigate impacts to the scenic character and aesthetics. As Steve acknowledged, we're going to have impacts to trees and stone walls. We're looking to relocate, rebuild those stone walls, and replace trees to the extent that we can. Introduce separated bicycle accommodations. Obviously, it's not a safe or comfortable facility for biking today with the very narrow shoulders, relatively high volume of traffic, and the speed of traffic. Also gives us an opportunity to replace all the aging infrastructure along the roadway, the stormwater drainage system, reconstruct the pavement, replace guardrail, give those infrastructure assets new life. And then, as Steve mentioned, return Canton Street to a neighborhood scenic road rather than the cut-through street that it's become. So the typical roadway section, and this is looking primarily north of Oceana, so really in the residential section. A travel lane of 10-foot wide in each direction, shoulders of 2-foot wide in each direction, and those are the narrowest that are allowed within the design guidelines for the functional class of roadway, which is an urban major collector. So looking to narrow up the roadway to the extent that we can. Introduction of granite curb on both sides of the roadway. Provision of an 8-foot wide typical side path on the northerly or easterly side of the roadway, separated from the travel lanes with a 0-foot to 4-foot wide grass buffer. And that wider grass buffer is necessary to accommodate relocated utility poles, such that we don't have to relocate them beyond the path, which would further impact the tree canopy there. And that results in a total width from the back of the side path to the opposite edge of traveled way of 32 to 36 feet. And some of the planned traffic calming measures that we're looking to implement, including, as I mentioned, the narrowest travel lane that we can accommodate for the class of roadway between the travel lane and the shoulder, introduction of the granite curb, constructing a raised intersection at Everett Street and Partridge Drive, and that'll calm traffic, particularly through that long straightaway stretch there. Introduction of, we have currently proposed 11 raised crosswalks along the 1.9 mile stretch, and primarily providing access from the shared use path on the easterly side to those residential neighborhoods on the opposite side of the roadway. And then at crosswalks where appropriate, looking to introduce rectangular rapid flashing beacons, which are a key safety improvement for pedestrians looking to utilize those crosswalks. We've developed some images just to help try to visualize what the current roadway is versus what it could be looking like with the implementation of the project as we currently envision it, or as currently described. And these images begin with an existing condition and then step forward to the proposed implemented about 2 years after implementation. And then another future view, which looks ahead to approximately a 10-year view. So you can sort of see the progression of the growth of the landscape. So this view here is just north of Spelman, looking to the south. And then the future view at that same point, you can see the path. It's a cement concrete material, but as Steve mentioned, it can easily be tinted. to a shade that blends in with the environment, as is more aesthetically pleasing than a bright white concrete. This is a segment that has the grass buffer to accommodate utility poles. And then you can see here versus the existing condition, the stone wall has been relocated to behind the path. And we've introduced some screening plantings along this particular property. And the properties with respect to where screening plants would be appropriate can be evaluated as the design progresses on a property by property basis. This is just representative of one location and what could be implemented. And then you can see there's three, in this particular view, there are three new street trees shown behind the stone wall. And then in the progression view to approximately a 10-year growth, the screening plantings have matured, as well as those three replacement street trees have also matured, shown behind the stone wall again. And then stepping a little further south, this view is just north of Aaron Road, again looking to the south. This is the existing condition, the current view. And then in the 2-year progression view after post-construction, again, this is a segment where more constrained than the prior view and no utility poles on this side of the roadway. So we're proposing to shift the shared use path immediately adjacent to the roadway. So not providing a buffer here in order to lessen impacts to trees, walls, and those constrained residential properties, those that are particularly closer to the roadway, such as the one you see here. So although a couple of trees in this view were impacted by the project, proposing again screening plantings behind the relocated wall, and then some additional replacement street trees behind the wall as well. And then progressing again to the 10-year projection here. You see those same street trees, replacement trees have grown, and the screenings have filled out and screening that property similar to how the tree in the original view screened it. Steve, I'll
Thank you. Yeah,
throw it
thank you,
back to
John.
you.
But before we open it to questions, John, if you could go back to, I think was the third slide for a second. That one there, yes, thank you. And then I'd just like to make a couple of comments, and then Ellen, we're happy to turn it up over to discussion. But this is a really key part of our discussion tonight. We're working very hard to balance design requirements and scenic road requirements and neighborhood character requirements. We have to remember that the state's involved with the approval process. This is a town project, but we're going after money to fund it that the state approves the process as well. It's a federal money, actually. Candidly, the requirements for that funding call for a much wider project than we've shown already, and buffers along the road all the way up and down. We feel we've made a lot of progress with the leadership at the Mass DOT, and we believe we can get it down to this width. The scenic road and neighborhood considerations drive us to a plan requiring significant waivers at the state. And that's why I'm saying I think we can get there. That's why we need your input. So your input on this would be helpful, not only as we continue the design phase, but very candidly as we work with the state and the neighborhood to balance all of the considerations we're hearing from both sides. So I just wanted to point that out a little stronger, and hopefully we can hear comments about that and anything else on your mind. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that candor as well. I think that's helpful for board members when we frame our discussion. I'll start with asking for any comments from staff.
I would just like to mention, the review criteria for scenic roads. There are actually 7 points in total, one being preservation of natural resources, environmental values, historical values, scenic and aesthetic characteristics, public safety, compensatory actions proposed, such as replacement of trees or stone walls, and other sound planning considerations.
Thank you. I was gonna frame the conversation that way if you did not, so I appreciate that. Okay, if there are no other comments or questions or input from staff, I think it would be wise to just open up the floor to board member feedback, questions, thoughts. I'm not seeing any other staff hands raised, so I would happily entertain comments and questions from my colleagues. Sean.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll step in first, and Marianne, Steve, thank you for the work you've done on the working group. I've had the opportunity to see a lot of those meetings and kind of watch some of the progress along the way, and certainly have conversations with people who have been at those meetings, who have also been kind of watching the progress of this project as it's gone through kind of different concept plans and designs. I'll start by making some kind of general principles for what I'd be looking for in something like this, and that I think the board should be considering. And I think the two biggest overarching themes I'd note would be, I think the design here, A, needs to thread the needle wherever possible to try to preserve the scenic nature of this road as much as possible, and get into some of the specifics around that, particularly around maintaining mature trees, using trees in the buffer space between the roadway and the path, etc., or using stone walls at the same time within the buffer space between the roadway and the path. So that's kind of overarching theme number one, is thread the needle. I think right now we've seen kind of a broad stroke principle for design, which is here's where the path's going to go, kind of a straight shot up certain sides of one street or another. I don't think a straight shot's going to be the answer here, because it's going to take out a lot of trees in that path. And stone walls are actually relatively fungible, but trees themselves are not. You take them out, and it's going to take many years for a replacement tree to mature in a way that's got the same scenic characteristic. Comment number two, overarching theme. And this is perhaps where I disagree about the removal of the buffers. If it looks like a highway, people are going to treat it like a highway. And I think there's a reasonable body of research out there that suggests the wider a space is visually, the more likely people are to drive at a faster pace in that space. If some of the goals of this project are in fact traffic calming and even pedestrian safety along the path, I would be very interested in seeing a path that meanders away from the road and has stone walls and trees where possible, either one or the other or both in the buffer space kind of between the path and the roadway. I think that's better protection from a public safety standpoint for pedestrians. It also does a much better job preserving the scenic and aesthetic character of the space. It preserves the natural resources, preserves some of the historic value. It feels more like a country road, which is, I think, part of the goal with these scenic road designations. So I'll start with those broad comments and maybe listen to some of the discussion with my other board members. I probably have many more specifics on all of those fronts, but I don't want to dominate the time here. Thanks.
Thank you, Sean. Since it's just us, Mike, did you have anything you wanted to share or comments on this?
Sure. So first, Marianne, Steve, John, thank you again. And everyone else involved. I know how much work has been put into this project already. So thank you for doing that nitty-gritty, difficult work. As kind of an initial, initial thought, I'm kind of heavily in favor of sort of opening up this neighborhood so kids can walk to their school, neighbors can walk to their neighbors' houses. But I do agree with Sean that I do want to balance and preserve the scenic nature of the road as much as possible. I really appreciated the view, the current, the future, and then the future a little bit ways down the line view. It seemed to me that those two spots of the road where you showed us, current and future, were not spots that I sort of noticed when I go down Canton Street. They didn't seem like they were spots on Canton Street that, really bring out the scenic nature of that road. Um, and so while that rendition to me in those spots, it didn't change too much. There was some trees removed and a few more trees planted. I would want to see kind of how that design would look on other stretches of Canton Street, because I know other stretches are much more heavily, kind of heavily treed. And just from a high level view, I thought that the current to the future, which I loved again, but it looked a little bit more like Ohio versus New Hampshire. And I think what Sean is trying to get at is we want to kind of look more like more like a New England country road, I think is the word he used, versus kind of a flat, straight shot that you could find in a neighborhood in the Midwest. That said, again, I think this can be done, and I do want to. This is my first chance to kind of see a presentation, and I do want to dive in and see how much we can kind of further both of those goals of the sidewalk and the preservation. One question I had for the board members and anyone else, well, I have two questions. One, I know there's a scenic road law, a state scenic road law that may give us more wiggle room in certain spots on Canton Street, if we try to meander a little bit and get a little creative. So I was curious if there was any information on whether we could use that law to our advantage in negotiating with Mass DOT, in terms of if there's stretches on Canton Street that are just, stretches you just do not want to tear down, and there's a place to meander that path a little bit. Could there be a little leeway in the length of that path? And then the second question I had, and I think it's more for Mary and Steve, is I'm just curious. It sounds like one of the goals is to make Canton Street not a cut-through street anymore. And I wonder, I'm just curious about how any of what's being presented would accomplish that. I understand traffic calming measures, I think 11 raised crosswalks, but given that the street connects the East Street Rotary to University Ave, right? And there's not any other street that kind of has a direct shot like to those two areas of Westwood. I'm just curious whether this would just create more slower traffic. And is the thinking that, oh, well, because it's going to be slightly slower because there's traffic calming and all these side crosswalks, people are going to go all the way around Everett Street and all the way down Route 1 when they know that, is that going to be the quicker route? So I'm just curious, like, how that goal is being furthered. But yeah, again, I look forward to this discussion, and I look forward to making these sidewalks in the best way possible that fits our neighborhood. So I'm excited to do that.
Thank you, Mike.
Ellen, could I respond to a few comments? You want me to?
Yeah, I think there were some questions. If there are answers, that's great. Thank you.
So let me first say that the comments that we're hearing are exactly why we're here. So thank you very much. And also, I'm going to back up for a second and just talk for a second about the meandering sidewalk or meandering path. Frankly, for those of us who've been involved with planning, that's something I believe we all would love to see. I just want you to know what the conflict with that is not a design feature as much as a resident reaction. People don't want the sidewalk closer and closer to their house. They want it closer to the street. So because we have narrow frontages on many of the properties, because we have trying to keep the street narrow, what we're trying to weigh, and we're open to the discussion, we'll continue working. I just want you to know the conflict on that is more the feedback we're getting from many residents who would be impacted by a meandering walk. With regard to traffic calming, and again, I'm saying we're open to continuing that dialogue, but your input could help with that dialogue as well, is what I'm saying. And by the way, if I say anything wrong, I'm sure Mary Ann or John or Ellen, who's on the working group, and Nora's on the working group, all of you feel free to correct me. With regard to not making this a cut-through street, I think the goal is to keep people on University. not to get them up to Everett Street even, Michael. It's to those people coming off the ramps from Dedham Street that becomes Canton Street, get them to turn down University. Several things, the raised crosswalks by themselves would not do it, but then adding the granite curbing and a narrowing of the street. Granite curbing does a lot to slow down traffic. There's several things that are being done. The number one issue is the speed of the traffic first. And if we can slow down the speed, that impacts looking for an alternate route. Because if someone can get through the neighborhood quickly, it becomes the fastest route. If we can slow them down, then we accomplish other goals toward returning it more to a neighborhood street than a cut-through street. So I just wanted to address it. I don't want to just be jabbering, but these are very valid things, but I just want to give you a sense of what we're weighing. But turning Canton Street, we do believe this project will allow us to do traffic calming and traffic mitigation more than we could have done prior to without the project.
Steve, that makes a lot of sense. Has there been a discussion in the working group meetings on the impact to the residents? Because I do hear from a lot of residents on that side of town who have kids in elementary, middle school, high school, that, you know, all their activities and sports are sort of, you know, near the middle school and high school. And with Everett Street, we have another new development that's going to go live shortly, but the traffic already around that area, getting across town is already very tough. And is this going to have a major impact on the residents who live, you know, in the neighborhoods in Canton Street as they try to get across town? Or will it be more minimal because we're hoping less people are getting off that road and they're taking the highway, they're taking the University Ave exit? That's the hope.
Right. Our focus is to diminish this as a cut-through street. And we believe that and allow, it in itself will make it a better street for those living on the street. Also, I'll just tell you, I speak to a lot of residents. I speak to residents who are in favor of this and who are not as in favor of it or opposed to it. We have several houses, for full disclosure, several properties that we're not satisfied with where we are yet. And we're trying to, as we go through this next phase, one of our key issues or key objectives is to work with individual property owners to try to further mitigate their concerns. So it's all part of the process, but we do believe public safety is the number one objective of this. We want to keep the character too.
Thank you. Anything else from my colleagues before I jump in on a couple of things?
Oh, and I'd love to have your comments, and then I think we can maybe discuss a little more richly as well.
Okay. Yeah, I actually I think a lot of what I would have wanted to articulate has been said. I think I also, being a member of the working group, I've shared a lot of my thoughts already. I think I've been pretty consistent that I understand the challenge of trying to make a meandering path, and maybe the challenge is there are residents on the street that would prefer to see it more meandering, but they may not be the ones who would be directly impacted by that. But I still, for me, as a planning board member, need to see some effort made to that, because straight up one side of the street to me is not scenic. Even if you tint the concrete, I appreciate that as an effort, but it's still a concrete sidewalk going up one side of the street. That doesn't meet the threshold for me. And again, I think I've been pretty consistent in saying that. And I understand we've heard from the chairs of the working group that public safety is the top priority. From the Scenic Roadway Planning Board perspective, that's one of the 7 criteria that I'm looking at. So it's a priority, but preservation is very important to me as well. And I think we can do better at balancing the two. I think Sean alluded to preserving mature trees. I know we don't have a count on trees, but I've driven up and down Canton Street a bunch of times, and I can kind of, even conservatively estimating, all right, let's look at everything 3 feet back from the edge of the road. And we know realistically it's going to be more than that. There are several mature trees that would go, and I would like to see some effort made, which might also play into the meandering aspect of it, to preserve, not just replace. And again, I think I've been pretty consistent in expressing that desire as well. The neighborhood street thing, which may be a little bit out of scope for the sidewalk itself, for this project itself. I'm sensitive to that as well. I appreciate MassDOT wanting to return it to a neighborhood street. I don't want to say I feel that ship has sailed in many ways, but I think that's really aspirational. Like I drove down Canton Street yesterday morning to take my husband to the train station. So I was heading towards university and I could just get through, but it was literally bumper to bumper heading towards East Street at like 8:15, 8:30 in the morning. So there's a congestion problem. They weren't speeding because they weren't moving. So I think there's bigger challenges around some of that aspect that I don't know that this project will solve. It might help. Um, I'm happy to hear that MassDOT understands that there's a challenge there and wants to find ways to address it. So that's encouraging. But I appreciate that the traffic calming and the race crosswalks might help address some of the speeding, but I don't know that that does anything for the congestion. But I'm happy to hear they understand it's a problem. So I think that's, again, I'm not really adding anything new beyond what I said at other meetings, but good to get it on record in this context. I would like to see more of an effort made towards preservation, a more scenic path. I think it was Mike who said it feels more like Ohio, the design that we're seeing. And I also I had the same reaction to the photos. I think those aren't necessarily representative of the areas that will suffer the most impacts from any kind of defoliation or wall movement, and that will really look very different after this project. So I think it would be helpful and appropriate to pick a couple of other areas to add to that portfolio. I think that's it for me for now. Mike.
Yeah, I'd love to try to explore ways to get creative here. And so Steve or Marianne or anyone else who wants to chime in, I'm just curious if, there is a negotiating tool here in terms of if we have a stretch of Canton Street that, the trees are X number of years old, it's just so beautiful, so gorgeous. Is there a negotiating tool there that we can say to the administration, to Mass DOT, look, we are doing what's required of this project, but there are spots here that we don't want to touch, and the state doesn't have an interest in touching those too. We want to preserve these little areas. Can there be flexibility in certain spots where, maybe that's a way that we can work in and get a little bit more of what we're trying to preserve here. Just throwing that out there as a thought, and, welcome to any other thoughts on how we can approach this.
I'll start first. Again, early in the process, I wanted to see a meandering sidewalk. I don't think it's a state issue as much. John, you'll correct me, or Marianne. It's a resident issue. Where some of these mature trees are that we would want to meander the sidewalk around are in front of houses with fairly small frontage. If a house is 200 to 300 feet back from the street, it's not a big impact. If some of these houses are 50 or 60 feet back from the street, so you move a bicycle path 20 feet closer to their house, it's a very material thing from their perspective. So that's what we're dealing with, in my view, from my discussions, more than the state. I don't believe the state would have any issue, John, correct me, with a meandering sidewalk. It's more, what does it do to the frontage of many of these houses? So, but we should continue working it. I think with the planning board's help, we can maybe make an impact there. And if we can find the right balance, I think all of us on the working group, well, most of I don't think we have unanimity ever, but most of us, I do think, would support a meandering sidewalk. And I know, Nora, you might want to speak because you were bringing that up early on too, if I recall.
That's true. That is something that I, from the beginning of the project, thought would be the preferred method, to have the sidewalk move around some trees and, if possible, to have the stone walls closer to the road rather than between the path and the homes. But I do understand residents of the street who will have the path right in front of them, how they would prefer the opposite. I just wanted to ask one more question. Since the scenic road regulations that the planning board has addresses not just trees but stone walls, I didn't hear any of the planning board members speak specifically about stone walls and what your thoughts are on those, whether they would be whether you would consent to having stone walls relocated and replicated, whether they would be in kind or of a different type of stone wall. I think that would be helpful information.
Thank you, Nora. I saw Sean's hand go up immediately. We'll start there.
Well, I know Nora knows I'm Stonewall police sometimes around here. So I think I did mention it briefly at my comments earlier, and in a way, kind of perhaps in agreement with you, Nora, except with a tweak. Like, I think stone walls can also serve as an effective safety measure if they can be placed, for example, between the roadway and where pedestrians will be. And Steve, I'm cognizant of your concerns with specific residents who may or may not be amenable to that view, but I just believe it ticks a lot of the boxes for us. It's higher on kind of scenic and aesthetic value front. It's higher on a kind of a historical preservation front. It's higher on a aesthetic front. It's higher on a public safety front as well, because it creates some of that buffer. And you can even line up, in some cases, if you've got utility poles right next to the street, you can maybe line the stone walls kind of down the utility poles, sort of in line with them, and sort of use that space as a 2-in-1 instead of needing a grass buffer. In other situations, it might make more sense to have the stone wall kind of right behind the path and have some trees between the path and the road, or you might have just a handful of pinch points where you got the sidewalk next to the road, the path next to the road, but then you've got kind of stone wall immediately abutting it. Either way, I think my view is that wherever there is a stone wall, it's essential to preserve the aesthetic in some way. Does that mean maintaining the existing stone walls in its location? Sure, that's great if it works out with the design, but like I said earlier, I think stone walls are more fungible than trees. Like cutting down a 36-inch tree, you're not going to get that back anytime in this century. But taking down a stone wall, you can, I think, reasonably reconstruct it at another point, kind of along that same stretch of path. In terms of sort of materials and look, Nora, I think my preference is part of it's sort of resident preference at any given extent of the street, because some of those residents may have maintained those stone walls. If there was a certain way they maintained that look and they want it to look the same way at the end of the project, I'd want to be supportive of that. If they're agnostic to that, then my general view is the more rusticated looking, the better. So I don't tend to be a big fan of necessarily needing to reconstruct every stone wall with a lot of with a lot of kind of mortar between the different stones. It can be a little bit more, I think, rusticated, country road, typical of what we see in New England. I don't know if that makes it easier or harder to reconstruct. You can let me know on that, but that's just my general view on materials. And it's great to salvage materials as much as possible. I think maintaining as much of the original material is important to the kind of historical preservation criteria that we have as part of our bylaw. Is that helpful, Nora?
Yes, I think specifically what I was asking was there are many different types of walls throughout the long length of Canton Street. And I believe that if a plan gets through the state review process, there will be a detail for wall replication. And it's likely that the detail will be for a single type of wall, whether that's a dry stone wall or a dressed stone wall. You can look at examples around town where walls have been erected as part of roadway projects, and you can see most of them are a dressed stone wall. If you're looking for a more historic dry stone wall, then I think that's what you need to be looking for. And if you're looking to have every wall replicated in place of what it is, and some of those walls are not historic stone walls, they're more contemporary stone walls, that would be a different matter, and I think it would be very difficult to achieve a plan set to go forward which had all those different types. I think you'd be much better off going with a single type of stone wall.
I'll respond to that quickly, and I'm open to hearing everyone else's thoughts on this as well. If in fact kind of a single method is better, then certainly, and I like that as a matter of aesthetic consistency. I like that a lot. But I'd go for a dry stone wall. I think I'm using that language correctly. I can refer to some pictures on my own time and let you know if I got that wrong.
Thank you. Mike, did you want to weigh in on that?
I don't think I have anything more to add to the Stonewall discussion. I think it's positive if Steve believes that this is more of a resident issue than a state program issue. Because I think, if it's a resident issue, then, we can work with them, and we can work and see, where precisely there's an issue, which properties precisely there could be an issue. Yeah, so I think that's a positive thing in some respects.
Yeah, I'll just add I'm old school and a big fan of history. So my preference would echo Sean's, I think, in that I would rather the New England dry stone wall look, but I'm also more interested in what the people who have to live with the walls think. But if it sounds like there needs to be some sort of consensus from the neighborhood for the replacement, it would really need to be consistent, which I agree. I think that's a good thing. So I would defer to the consensus from the neighborhood, but I would lean towards the older dry stone wall, reusing as many of the boulders as we could that were there and finding someone who knows how to put them back together without any need for mortar. I think that would be what I would like to see. I see Elijah's hand up. Yes.
Yes, I just wanted to chime in as we are approaching the 1 hour mark. Just want to let the board know between presentation and discussion. It seems like we've covered the issues of the trees as well as the stone wall. And for anyone joining us, I guess in the audience, this is a pre-application meeting. So there will be another point along the line where this will come back before the planning board for the full hearing.
Thank you. Yes, it's good to clarify that the board's not making any formal recommendations tonight. There's no application in front of us. I actually really appreciate the pre-application hearings and would be amenable to you guys coming back at some point too before you file the formal application, because I think we've seen this on other projects. It's really helpful for everybody to kind of go through this less formal process. I think it can really help guide and save time and money in the long run. I had one more question because I'm looking over the criteria again, and it kind of came up, Nora alluded to it, with what the state would pay for, because compensatory actions proposed is on our list of criteria to evaluate. If we could get a sense, because I know we don't have it, and I know we speculate that the state would be amenable to reimbursing for stone wall replication or rebuilds because it is a scenic roadway. I would like, if possible, I'd like to see something a little bit less speculative and maybe something from MassDOT directly that's a little bit more committal to that, because I think that's important to know. Is that a yes, or is that a maybe, or is that the kind of thing where if the project were to move forward and MassDOT's not going to pay for it, then it goes back to the Westwood taxpayers who may or may not want to spend the money on that. And that is a concern for me personally. So if we could get a little bit more guidance from MassDOT as to how amenable they are to paying for replacement trees, because obviously some would need to be replacement trees, even if we are looking at preserving what we can, and for wall replacement, removal, all of that. That would be really helpful for me, and I think the board in general. And I think that's all I had. If anyone else had. Yes, Sean.
I'd like to give maybe a few more parting thoughts that I think or hope will be helpful to the design team and helpful in your conversations with residents. And I also want to offer, I don't know if we're allowed to offer ourselves as a resource as kind of planning board members in conversations with particular residents, because I think we share a lot of the same concerns. The meandering path piece is important to me. And I think it's important both for the preservation of mature trees, also for the scenic aspect of the road. And I think meandering in the sense that it's set back from the roadway is really a matter of public safety that I find very important as well, and actually goes in favor of having some kind of a buffer just about anywhere where possible between the road and the path. I recognize that creates issues with the very narrow right of way, and that might kind of require that conversation by conversation with different residents to see, hey, we're really trying hard to preserve the scenic character in front of your stretch of property, and And towards that end, this is the way we've got to look at it. We're going to try to keep the mature trees in front of your house. We're going to try to keep the stone walls here as well. We're definitely going to keep it in some form or other, and we're going to have some additional plantings to help screen, but this will make the path more scenic and allow us to maintain some of those mature trees. In particular, I would advocate for the preservation. I almost want to see the preservation of all mature trees of High Valley. So like anything greater than like 12-inch diameter breast height, I would certainly, and especially like heritage trees greater than 24-inch diameter breast height, I'd be hard pressed to approve any removal of a tree 24 inches or more, unless there was a very like clearly, clear demarcation from a independently selected certified arborist letting us know the tree's just not is already kind of dead, for example. So I think that's just, and I say that as having a bit of history of watching the Downey Street Sidewalk project. It's something I care a lot about, and part of the reason I ran for this role as well was because I care about these things and I want to try to make these projects better. So that's kind of on the tree front. And then for smaller trees, we certainly need a very solid replacement ratio with mature trees. And it's nice when those trees are kind of visible within the roadway and add to the country road character of the road. So that's one note. And I'm trying to think. I think the name of this game is, as Mike said, I think breaking the corridor into those segments where you understand here are particularly scenic stretches, where it's trickiest with the trees, where it's trickiest with the stone wall segments, where it's trickiest with this cluster of driveway areas. And I know you've already done some of that in laying out the concept plan and determining which side of the road it should go on. But I think you're going to need to take a thread the needle approach in some of those segments and figure out how can we creatively move this thing as much as possible. If we need flexibility around a given mature tree, can we split the 8-foot path into 2 kind of paths for just a short stretch so that they can move around the tree? I don't know what types of flexibilities we have there exactly with Mass DOT guidelines, but whatever we have, I think we need to use it. And I'd be hard pressed to kind of vote in approval of something that wasn't using those flexibilities. And then finally, Steve, Marianne, it sounds like you're starting to do this, but I don't know, would some residents be willing to have the conversation about kind of encroachment into their traditional property line if it means preserving the 4-foot or the 3-foot tree in front of their house? I want that preserved as a planning board member. I'm happy to be a part of that conversation. I don't know what those conversations look like, or but Steve, you opened the door to collaboration on that, and I open to exploring that more.
Terrific.
Excellent. Any other board member thoughts?
I'm good. I'm good, Ellen. I think I think I shared my initial thoughts, and I think I echoed a lot of what Sean said. I do also want to say that I understand this is the project that's going to be paid for by the state. There's going to be requirements that we have to meet. So for me, I just want to see a tough process where the utmost effort is made to kind of service these 2 goals. I might not be I don't know if I have strict standards in terms of what type of trees I would be okay with coming down, etc. I do want to see us try to figure out and try to get as much as we can in terms of preservation, because I do know that there's a big financial gain in the infrastructure improvements that will come with this project. And again, the goals of opening up this neighborhood so kids can go to their schools and neighbors can walk to their neighbors' houses. So I guess that's kind of where all my thoughts are floating around together.
Thank you. I do see something in the Q&A. Beth Collegiate. Beth, if we could just have your address, I would happily share your comment, but we do need your address for the record. Give that a second. while we're waiting. Oh, yep, see it. Up 5 White Lane, Beth Talija here. I think the historical commission should be heard regarding the historical walls. I actually think that's a really good idea. So if there's a way, I know they've had trouble because they haven't had a quorum, but even if it's kind of an off the record, not a full board, if there's some representative from that group that has the background that could give us some insights on that, I think that would be helpful. Thank you, Beth. All right. Excellent. Thank you all for taking the time to come. I always find pre-application hearings really valuable. I hope this was helpful both for our efforts in town and also to send back to Mass DOT. I hope we've provided you with some of the guidance that you need to go back and continue those conversations.
I think this was helpful. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much. Really appreciate your time. And thank you, John Rockwell, for being here with us. Thank you all.
Thank you all as well.
Thank you. Sean, I saw your hand go up real
I
quick.
was just going to ask quickly if anyone had any more questions for us, like information they needed from us. I just want to make sure we closed any loose ends, but perhaps not right now.
I think we're all set, but thank you for the question, Sean. Thank you all again.
Of course. I did see a hand go up. I'm sorry. Rich Strauss. Rich, if you are amenable to giving us your full name and address, I'm happy to allow your comment before we move on to our next agenda item.
He should be able to unmute if he wants to speak.
Excellent. Mr. Strauss, if you're able to unmute, you should be able to speak. It's like you're unmuted.
Yeah, it looks like you're unmuted. You might be having some audio connection issues to the
Technical
mic.
difficulties. Yeah. Are you with us, Mr. Strauss?
Perhaps he could put a message into the Q&A.
Yeah. I think, Mr. Strauss, it looks like we're having, so we cannot hear you. So if you wanted to put your comment into the Q&A, we can come back to it. I'm happy to read it into the record. But something seems to be amiss because I definitely see that you're unmuted, but we're not hearing you.
Madam Chair, along that line, I'm just putting my email in the chat. If anyone wants to send in official public comment, once we have advertised the hearing, you can always email myself at eromulus@westwoodma.gov, and I'll make sure I get this to the planning board.
Thank you. All right. Yes, I'm still not hearing anything. So, Mr. Strauss, yes. Oh, something in the Q&A. The post office needs to be contacted for mailbox locations. Thank you. I assume if we're relocating things. I appreciate that comment. Thank you.
We need an address.
Oh, yes, Mr. Strauss, we need your address for the record. (258) Canton Street. Thank you very much. All right. Thank you to everyone who came to participate in this conversation. Residents, working group, folks, thank you all.
Thank you.
All right. All right. Our next agenda item is 25 Fox Meadow Drive and 300 Fox Hill Street. Consideration of proposed approval not required A&R plan for 25 Fox Meadow Drive / 300 Fox Hill Street, continued from May 6, 2025. Do we have anyone here representing the applicant? Excellent.
Can you make Maureen a panelist before you
I just
Cool.
promoted
Great.
her. I think Michael got bumped off accidentally, so I'm promoting him back.
Thank you.
Also, I did hear from Phil. He will not be joining tonight and apologizes for not letting us know.
Thank you. All right, we have Mike.
Good evening.
And should be right. And Mr. Zaka, hello.
How are
Attorney
you?
Zaka, nice to see you. We're just waiting on our 5th board member to rejoin us.
Okay, yeah, while you're doing that, if you see a Chris Andrews on there, will he be promoted?
Right. We have Maureen's back and Chris Andrews. Wonderful. Is there anyone else you needed to bring in, Mr. Zaka, Attorney Zaka?
I believe that's it.
All right. Well, always nice to see you, and the floor is yours.
Thank you for the record. I'm Peter Zacher. I'm attorney with offices at 21 Kingsbrook Road in Dedham. I'm here on behalf of Chris and Ashley Andrews. I think it was back in, I'm forgetting now, January, we submitted a Form A application and plan. It was that part of the project, I'll use that word, was fairly straightforward. I think there were a few questions that were raised by staff. We believe that we had to address those in terms of some commentary, some wording that had to go on the plan. Essentially, the A&R plan was to allow the two abutting neighbors to do a land swap. Basically, the way the property is essentially being used because of various landscape easements, et cetera. At the end of the day, both properties would be in conformity with zoning. Along the way, after we submitted, some questions and issues were raised about the original emergency access way, which was sort of unrelated in a sense to the Form A, but no action was going to be taken on the Form A, and we've continued to this point. Hopefully, we've addressed those concerns. I've submitted a new easement plan, some drafts, or not drafts, actually signed conveyances. If the board is not familiar with what I'm talking about, when the property or when the subdivision was approved originally, because of some waivers that were granted, it was required to have an emergency access road that essentially went across, went from Fox Hill Street across what is now 300 Fox Hill Street, then across the Andrews property at 25 Fox Meadow Drive. It appears that some variances or some changes to that layout as it crossed over the Andrews property was required. And furthermore, it appeared that nobody could find any actual conveyances of the right to use the emergency access road to the town. So I believe we've submitted a plan that was satisfactory. And I also submitted the grant of easement deed from both the property owners to the town. So, and again, that's, beyond the Form A, but that's what was holding us up since January.
Thank you. Any comments from staff?
Yes, so I would just mention that the proposed A&R plan, as revised, does meet the criteria for the board to consider endorsement. There is one suggestion I made in approving or if the board is inclined to endorsing this A&R, that there is one line that mentions a recording of the endorsed A&R is subject to the prior recording of the emergency access easements.
Thank you.
Can I, not to interrupt, I apologize. Can we make that simultaneous recording? Because I believe the way I worded the grant of easements, it refers to the A&R plan because we have added the emergency access on that plan.
Nora, Elijah, any issue with that?
That would be fine.
Thank you. All right. I'll take any questions or comments from board members.
Looks good to me.
I'm not seeing anything. It was pretty straightforward from my perspective as well. So with that, and it sounds like that we just need to tweak the verbiage in. Yes. Okay. Then I would happily entertain a motion.
I move that the planning board find the approval not required application for 25 Fox Meadow Drive /300 Fox Hill Street dated December 12th, 2024 and revised through April 24th, 2025 to be complete, and that the board vote to endorse the submitted plan as not requiring approval under the subdivision control laws, and the recording of the endorsed A&R is subject to the simultaneous recording of the emergency access easements.
I have a motion. Did I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Sorry, my dog just decided to make a comment. Seeing none, I will take roll call. Sean?
Aye.
Maureen?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. The motion carries. Thank you very much.
Great. Just two things. Elijah, I will be dropping off. I have to get you a Mylar. I don't believe I submitted that. That's number one. And number two, just, compliments to staff. They really work this in terms of making sure that emergency access easement was as it was intended to be. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. Our next agenda item is 26 Dartmouth Street. Consideration of proposed modification of a consolidated flexible multiple use overlay district, FMUOD, special permit, environmental impact and design review, EIDR approval, and water resource protection overlay district, WRPOD, to install electricity poles with overhead wires at 26 Dartmouth Street. That's the 24M building. Looks like we have folks representing the applicant. Welcome.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Brian Dundon. I am site civil engineer with R.J. O'Connell and Associates, and I believe I have the project applicant, Mr. Brian Beck, from PPF Industrial 26 Dartmouth LLC. We are here tonight seeking to amend an existing special permit that was issued by this board in January of 2023 to perform both building and site renovations at property located at 26 Dartmouth Street. This board may recall, this property is currently under renovation for a research and development facility to be operated by 24M, in which they specialize in the design and manufacturing and development of ionized batteries for electrical car type uses. We are here tonight seeking an amendment to that special permit to accommodate a temporary condition. And what I mean by that is the owner and the applicant have been advised by Eversource that providing the property with permanent power is being delayed on two fronts. One is in order to accommodate the electrical demand that the site requires, primary power is planned to come underground from an existing electric utility manhole at the intersection of University Ave and Dartmouth Street. And conduit was going to be run underground along Dartmouth Street, which has to cross underneath the freight rail, CSX freight rail lines, and then into the site to service the property. I can also call up if you'd like, share with you a site plan if that will make things a little easier. Let me just.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, just for reference, this is Dartmouth Street. I don't have the full length of out to University Ave, but the way Eversource was providing power was it would come down Dartmouth Street to a new manhole here. An underground conduit would be coming through this way, coming underneath the electrical, the railroad, and then into our site to the outdoor electrical equipment that is located in this area. The underground electrical conduit infrastructure has been installed to date. The only piece that is missing is this small piece that is clouded in this general area. What has happened is, as of last week, we were advised by Eversource that the electrical conduit has been installed. They've received the approvals from CSX Rail, and they have installed the electrical conduit so that it connects on both sides of the rail lines. The next step is for Eversource to come back in and run primary cables through that conduit and then connect it back up into this existing electrical manhole that exists today. The logistical challenge that we have is the schedule of trying to get permanent power in place does not meet the plans for 24M to secure a request an occupancy permit to operate the building. So as a result of that, what has been proposed by Eversource is to provide them with a temporary power until such time permanent power can be provided. And the way temporary power is going to work is there is an existing electric utility pole at this location of the property, and the plan is to run overhead electric to 2 telephone poles. One will be located in this general location, and the second will be located in this general location. And then from this pole, it would run underground to the electrical manhole that is installed, and that will then energize the line to go back and feed this equipment in here. Right now, Eversource is scheduling to try to get this work done by the end of July. It was the hopes of the tenant, 24M, to apply for an occupancy permit towards the end of July and the beginning of August. Since this is very close in time, what we're hoping to do is get the temporary situation approved, and then once the permanent situation can be installed, we would come back and remove the temporary utility poles, this one located here, this one located here, as well as the overhead lines back to the original source, which is the utility pole located at the rear of the Dedham Westwood Water District property within the easement for the MBTA. So tonight, that's what we're asking for, is a temporary or an amendment to the approved site plan for a temporary electrical condition, with the understanding is that once permanent power is provided, and again, permanent power will be all underground, the electric company would come back in, remove the temporary condition, and the primary source would be the major source of power to service the site. With that, I would like to turn it back over to the board and answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. I will start with any comments or questions from staff.
Yes, so I would just mention to the board that if there is an inclination to approve this, I have suggested that there be a condition that speaks to the decommissioning of these overhead lines and utility poles in a timely fashion.
Thank you. Any other staff comments? I'm not seeing any hands. All right, Maureen, yes.
Yeah, is there a specific time frame that you expect this to happen? You're thinking it's going to happen by the end of July when Eversource is going to be able to put these underground? Is that what you said, Brian?
Yes. So based on conversations with Eversource, they are planning towards the end of July to run the actual permanent power underground cables from University Ave to this electrical manhole in this location right in here.
And temporarily, you're going to use those two poles that are noted on the drawing.
That is correct.
Okay, but those will come down after this is complete.
That is correct.
Okay, and Elijah was saying a certain time frame.
Yes, Madam Chair, so it would be within 90 days of the completion of the permanent electrical service, or and no later than December 31st of 2026.
Thank you. Maureen, were you good?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, sure. I didn't want to cut you off. Any other, sorry, not staff, board member comments, questions? I'm not seeing any other hands up. If there are no other questions, comments, or discussion, I'm happy to entertain a motion. I think we have a couple of actions we need to.
Yes, I will share. First motion would be to consider the request as minor or major, which I am suggesting as minor, and then the actual conditions of approval.
Sean, I can take this one if you want.
Yeah, go for it.
So I move that the planning board determine the modification of the Consolidated Flexible Multiple Use Overlay District Special Permit, Environmental Impact Design Review Approval, and Water Resource Protection Overlay District Approval for 26 Dartmouth Street, as described in the application, therefore submitted to the planning board and filed in the office of the town clerk on June 4, 2025, to be minor in nature.
I second the motion.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll take roll call. Sean?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Maureen?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. That motion carries. All right, and the next motion, I believe, is slightly longer than that one.
I move that the planning board grant the minor modification of the Consolidated Flexible Multiple Use Overlay District Special Permit, Environmental Impact Design Review Approval, and Water Resource Protection Overlay District Approval for 26 Dartmouth Street, as described in the application, therefore submitted to the planning board and filed in the office of the town clerk on June 4, 2025, subject to the following conditions. 1, except as modified by the conditions and finding hereof, the project shall comply with the project plans and with the conditions of all prior decisions of the property in all respects, and the applicant shall pursue completion of the project with reasonable diligence and continuity. 2, if the project or any condition imposed in this decision requires any other permit, license, or other approval from any town of Westwood board, commission, or agency, or other Commonwealth or federal regulatory agency, the applicant shall make an appropriate application for the same and shall obtain all required approvals prior to the start of any work. If any condition of such permit, license, or other approval from any other board, committee, or agency is inconsistent with this decision, the applicant shall make application to the planning board for an amendment to this decision, and the planning board shall consider such application in accordance with the requirements of MGL Chapter 48, Section 9, and all applicable planning board rules and regulations. Any proposed alterations, modifications, deletions, or changes to the decision shall be requested in writing to the town planner and building commissioner prior to implementation. A, proposed alterations, which are considered de minimis by the building commissioner, may be accepted as a note of the file. B, proposed alterations, which are considered minor by the building commissioner, shall require the filing of a modification application of said approval for review by the planning board at a publicly posted planning board meeting. C, proposed alterations, which are determined to be major by the building commissioner or by the planning board, shall be considered by the planning board as a formal amendment to the approval and will require a new public hearing before the planning board. 4, the applicant shall work with the utility provider in good faith to cause the removal of the temporary electrical service, including all above ground utility poles, within 90 days of the completion of the permanent electrical service and no later than December 31, 2026. 5, all project-related construction activities shall comply with the timeframe set forth in the town's general bylaws, Chapter 292, for noise and construction, which allows such work Monday through Saturday between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., and Sunday between the hours of 12 p.m. and 7 p.m. 6, a copy of this decision and the project plans shall be kept on the project site at all times during construction.
Question? That December 31st, 2026, is that supposed to be 2025?
I thought I heard 2026 in Elijah's
Oh, I
recommendation.
thought I heard no date.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Because I thought it said 90 days. Was I not listening?
It's
within 90 days.
Whichever comes first.
Okay,
Right.
whichever comes first, the 90 days or December of 2026.
correct.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so no amendment needed. We're good?
Yes.
Okay,
I would second.
right.
the motion.
excellent. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, I will take roll call. Sean,
Aye.
Maureen,
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. The motion carries. All right. Thank you. Thank you for coming this evening. You're welcome. All right. Next agenda item is 174 University Ave, consideration of a project development review approval to install a remote drive-through at 174 University Avenue. That is the Chase Bank. Elijah, anyone here from the applicant?
I
No.
just promoted Giovanni.
Okay, thank you.
I also wanted to point out there was a Q&A that popped up during the last agenda item about the first agenda item, and I'm not sure if you want to address it.
Oh, thank you. Well, it is properly worded, so I'll read it into the record before we move on to this. Kate Cochran, 406 Canton Street. At what point will the cost of stone wall replacement be brought into consideration, and when will tree replacement costs be looked at seriously? For clarity, for the record, that was, I'm assuming, was for the agenda item 1, the pre-application hearing for the Canton Street sidewalk. Good questions. I'm interested in that as well. I think we asked for that. As to the when, I'm not really clear on when we'll get that, but I believe the Canton Street Working Group will start meeting again soon, so maybe we can carry that conversation over to that forum, for lack of a better way to put it. Okay, so welcome, Mr. Is it Cesar?
Caesar's fine.
Caesar. Okay, welcome. Thank you. Happy to hand the floor over to you to share.
Perfect. Thank you. Good evening, board. My name is Giovanni Caesar. I'm with Stonefield Engineering and Design. I'm a project engineer here on behalf of the Architect Core Estates Group, as well as JP Morgan Chase. Just as a quick bit of background, actually, could I get permission to share my screen here? That would probably help. There we go. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Just as a bit of history, our office was here about a year ago. We secured the approval last July for the Chase Bank located at the previous Casa Loca at 174 University Ave, where, we were proposing the retrofit of the restaurant to a bank use, and this is going to have a split tenant. There's going to be a demising wall installed here. And just as an update, construction is going well. We're kind of nearing the last round of of work inside the building, and the bank is excited to open mid to late August. So as part of this application, we're coming back before the board to propose a remote drive-through ATM at the northern portion of the site. Here is kind of the first phase of work that we were able to get approved last year, and kind of moving over to this further portion of the parking area. We have a remote drive-through ATM here. We're also taking this opportunity to introduce some additional landscaping throughout the site. I know during our previous approval, it was kind of a sea of asphalt really in this parking lot, especially considering kind of the uses that we were analyzing our parking count, or excuse me, our parking requirements off of. And to show you what this remote ATM would look like, we have sort of an elevation drawing on our construction, or on our details for our site plan here, kind of in line with Chase branding. And really the focus is to kind of bring in, that aspect of modern banking to where, people are really conducting these transactions while on the road already. We know they're going to stop into the bank. So giving our customer base the opportunity to use a remote ATM. Again, this is not, a visual screen. This is really just, you place your card in, you conduct your transaction for a minute, and then you're on your way. So going back to this site plan rendering here, we're kind of showing the proposed condition with the landscaping that we mentioned earlier. We're introducing some minor tweaks to the circulation pattern throughout the site just to enhance vehicular safety throughout this site. So we have our ATM lane, which provides ample stacking here, as well as a bypass lane, just in case you have to, kind of get from this parking area and, egress this site. You have both options here. So we know that we're not looking to secure an approval tonight. We just wanted to get some high level feedback from the board, as we'll be back in a couple weeks. Just kind of incorporate any improvements or tweaks to the design that you see fit. So happy to go into more detail anywhere else, but I'd like to turn it over to the board now.
Thank you very much. All right, let's start with staff comments.
Yes, so I just want to thank Giovanni and the applicant team to being amenable to allowing for the suggested continuation to the July 8th meeting. We did receive the application in a reasonable time. However, we were not able on our side to review the stormwater management plan to the level that I would like. So I'm just suggesting the board continue this to that July 8th meeting, provide any comments. I do think that it's a improvement in terms of adding some impervious surface and breaking up the asphalt for this ATM.
Thank you. Just to clarify, make sure I heard you correctly, the recommendation is we just continue this without discussion amongst board members?
Yeah, if there's any pressing concerns that you see on this, I would suggest Madam Chair for comment. Otherwise, yes, continuing it to that July 8th meeting.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think I'm probably most interested in the stormwater report. I appreciate the landscaping, but I will, if any of my colleagues have any pressing concerns that would be important for the applicant to address before they come back. Take a moment on that. Sean, yes.
Thanks, Madam Chair. First of all, question for planning staff. This is within the University Avenue Mixed Use District, is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. And then I think second along with that, that's a thicker portion of the bylaw than some others. Are there any first glance aesthetic considerations that staff would have looking at this in terms of making this consistent with the character of the overall University Avenue area that staff thinks are worthwhile to bring up tonight to give the applicant some time to review those considerations and incorporate them before the July 8th meeting?
I do think that there's I guess within the limit of disturbance that they're showing, they do maintain some of the trees that are on the outside of this workspace. I would say that if there are trees being removed, that any should be replaced in kind. And I think that's probably the extent of my comment.
Thank you. Nora, I see Nora and Amanda, whichever of you would like to go first.
My comment's very brief. The planning board has always required peer review by Beta and architectural peer review by Mike Senesi for all projects within University Station. So I'd recommend the same here.
I'd be supportive
you.
of that.
Thank you. That's helpful. Amanda.
I also wanted to note that when we last had Chase Bank before us, even though the ATM wasn't part of it, we did see a rendering at that time, and there were modifications made to eliminate some extra signage that wouldn't be consistent with University Station. So they've already made some effort on that front to be consistent.
Thank you. Any other feedback that would be helpful for the applicant at this point in the process?
Madam Chair, can I make one more comment?
Absolutely.
Thank you. So beyond the, I think, request that this go to architectural peer review, which I think is wise, and of course the stormwater peer review as well, I wanted to make sure, I think last time we had as a condition of our decision, the incorporation of some facade changes with respect to kind of color and texture and materials that we had discussed at that planning board meeting. And that was for kind of the main part of the building. I don't, to the extent that this is a modification of that plan, I just wanted to make sure that those comments were still being heard and incorporated. And I know that they would require town planner approval. So Elijah, I wanted to know if we ended up seeing anything on that front.
Yes, they did submit updated renderings that showed more of a alignment with the University of, at least for the building portion.
Okay. I think my one area of concern had been kind of on the building itself, on the side facing University Ave, right under that sign where Casa Loca used to have a more kind of variegated wall with some kind of natural wood tones or something. And it looks like that's just sort of a blank gray wall right now. I think I brought that up in our previous meeting on this. And I suppose I wanted to continue to advocate that. I thought that would have been incorporated. I don't see it on the existing elevations uploaded with our meeting packet for tonight. I'm still seeing sort of a blank gray wall that's sort of uninterrupted. And again, I wanted to recommend breaking that up visually. So if there's something I missed or if I'm misremembering the previous meeting, let me know.
So for clarification, that rendering was put up there from the previous application as a reference point of the previously approved project, but does not necessarily include all of the additional documentation that came with the conditions afterward. That was more for general reference, but
all right.
I should have clarified that in the packet.
That's okay. Thanks, Amanda. That's enough for me for now.
Thank you. All right. So thank you. So as far as the peer review goes, Nora, is that something that we should take action on this evening?
So
yes, you should require that peer review be ordered through Beta with Mike Senesi Architects and return at the next available meeting after that review has been conducted.
Okay, thank you.
Would I be able to ask a question on the peer review briefly?
Absolutely.
Perfect. So we really didn't propose any modifications to the stormwater system on site. Given the reduction in impervious surfaces throughout the site, we felt that we alleviated some of the concerns over the previous stormwater system, including the peak flows that were reduced. And that's all included in our stormwater report. I guess would the peer review still be necessary if we're not intensifying any impervious condition on site?
So the peer review firm that we use for all of University Station reviews all aspects, including not just the drainage, the stormwater, reviews the traffic flow, pedestrian flow, landscaping, and architectural.
Understood. Okay.
Thank you. All right, it sounds like we have a couple of actions to take this evening. Elijah, if we have motions, if there's no other pressing feedback from the board or any other questions from the applicant, I would happily entertain the first motion.
Yes, just 1 second as I include. Right. 1 second.
Understood, you actually had to craft it, I'm sure. No worries.
Can I ask just first, Nora, will this language work for our purposes? To get beta in?
Yeah, my fire alarm's going off, so I'm gonna move.
Okay.
Oh,
Since this is not a hearing, you do not have to set a date certain tonight for review as July 8th. You can say instead that it will be brought back to the board once peer review has been completed. It's since I don't believe Beta has been contacted about this yet. And if that's the case, we couldn't possibly know that they would be ready by July 8th. I think that would be their goal. They would try to be, but it's not a hearing. It's a project development review meeting. So you don't have to state a specific date.
Okay.
so we could just delete the specifics of the follow-up meeting, just say
On
to-
June 12th, 2025, to such meeting, after which peer review via beta group and associated architectural review can be completed. Or something like that. I'll wait for. I need to wait for a license.
I think you could just say be continued to await peer review response from Beta, peer review response from Beta Group and their associated architectural staff.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I can't update the language on the screen.
Yeah.
We'll just have to wait for Elijah for that, unless you want to ad lib and just make your motion.
Let me, I'll make an attempt. Just give me a minute. Let me try this and you tell me if this sounds wrong. I move that the planning board continue the public meeting for consideration of project development review approval of the Chase Bank at 174 University Avenue as described in the application, therefore submitted to the planning board and filed in the office of the town clerk on June 12th, 2025 to await peer review response from Beta and associated architectural staff.
That's it.
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll take roll call. Maureen?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. The motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Caesar. We will see you again at a future date.
Sounds good. I appreciate the board's time. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Night.
All right. So then our next item is 790 Gay Street, consideration of proposed modification to an environmental impact and design review, EIDR, approval to permit the abandonment of the walking path. Hold on, sorry. Yes, abandonment of a walking path at 790 Gay Street, Pine Hill School. It looks like Elijah is not back yet, so I will turn to Nora and Amanda to give us any updates on this.
So they did ask for a continuance. Elijah would have to verify whether that was a continuance without discussion, but I don't see anyone from the applicant team here. You did get an additional comment, public comment in your packet that was added this afternoon. We had just received it, kind of explaining more of the context behind the path. And here's Elijah, so I will pass it back to him.
Thank you.
Sorry
Welcome
about
back.
that.
No
Everything's-
worries. Everything okay?
Yeah, thankfully.
Elijah, we did take a motion on this, a modified motion, read out loud. And then we're moving on to 790 Gay.
Okay.
So 790 Gay is continued, is that correct, Elijah?
Oh, you're muted, Elijah, sorry.
Okay, yeah, there was a request from the applicant to move it to July 8th, but even with that, I only received a comment from the Permanent Building Committee and School Building Committee today, and I'm seeking request from the Commission on Disability, who typically meet the second Wednesday of the month. They didn't meet in June, so I'm looking to meet with them at their July 9th meeting, and so I would request the board continue this to July 29th.
Thank you. All right, then I would entertain a motion to continue.
I move that the planning board continue the public meeting for consideration of modifying EIDR approval of the Pine Hill School at 790 Gay Street as described in the application, therefore submitted to the planning board and filed in the office of the town clerk on May 1st, 2025 to Tuesday, July 29th, 2025 at 7 p.m. via Zoom, where a Zoom link and associated call-in numbers will be provided on the town's calendar on the homepage at westwoodma.gov.
It looks like we have a raised hand, Madam Chair.
Oh, yes, I do see that. I did have a motion in a second, but as I was about to say, any further discussion? I see a hand raised in the participants. Nick Chacharoni, I'm sorry if I did not say that correctly. Sir, if you could just give us your full name and address for the record.
I'm sorry, I hit the wrong button by accident. I was waiting for the next item. My apologies.
No worries at all. All right. Okay, so I still have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Right, I'm checking for hands. Seeing none, I will take roll call. Sean?
Aye.
Maureen?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Motion carries. That public meeting is continued. All right. All right, so next up we have, sorry, I need to flip back to my other screen. 340 Clapboardtree Street, and as this is a public hearing, I'm going to read an excerpt from the notice to open this meeting. This hearing, the Westwood Planning Board will hold a remote public hearing on June 17th, 2025 at 7 p.m. via Zoom regarding an application filed by St. Mark's of Ephesus Greek Orthodox Cathedral for consideration of a limited environmental impact and design review, EIDR, approval pursuant to section 7.3 of the Westwood zoning bylaw for the purposes of constructing an altar area resulting in an additional 120 square feet to the exterior and modified landscaping on the eastern side of the building at 340 Clapboardtree Street, Westwood, Mass. 02090. In accordance with PB-25-14, the property is in the single residence E SRE zoning district and within the wireless communications overlay district WCOD. Land affected, assessors map 21, lot 064, property owner St. Mark of Ephesus Greek Orthodox Cathedral. All right. Do we have? Sorry about that. Oh, welcome, Father George. And how do you say your name, Mr. Chapter? I don't want to mispronounce it. You're muted, sir. I'm sorry.
Chacheroni. You said it right the first time.
Thank you very much. And your username is just B Ellis. So, Mr. Ellis, I'm assuming.
Bruce Ellis.
Bruce Ellis. All right. Welcome to all of you, and I'm happy to turn the floor over to you.
Okay, my name is Nick Chacheroni. I am representing the church as a parishioner, as a contractor. I was in front of this board approximately 6-7 years ago when we first did the ADA accessible entrance and bathrooms on the other side of the cathedral. What we are doing now is the original front entrance that you're probably used to, which is for the church is abandoned at this point. We do use the opposite end for the sake of religious practice. The altar should be facing in a certain direction, which faces the direction of that new entrance. What we're proposing here is to eliminate the unused stairs, the unused ramp, and just finish off that back side of the property. It's pretty much straightforward as that. I can share my screen, or do you have the drawings yourselves?
We do. I think it would be helpful if either you or our staff projected the drawings.
Let's see if I could. Let's see. Share screen. How do we do this?
There should
here
be
we go.
okay.
Yeah. Okay. Entire screen. Can you see it now?
No, not yet.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'm horrible at this. Oh, share. How's that?
Still don't see it.
No.
I can pull them up. Which
Okay,
ones
if you
are
don't
you?
mind.
Yeah. Do
Thank
you want
you.
the architectural drawings?
Just the architectural drawings, yes.
Okay. All right. And if these aren't the ones you want, I can pull up the other ones. So just work with me. Okay.
Excuse me.
Were these the ones you were
Those
looking
are
to
the
share?
yes, those are the
Okay.
correct ones. You can scroll to the next page. Next one. Okay. All this is showing is that we will be removing the temporary altar that was built when the church was first purchased to get them up and running, removing the stairs, removing the ramp, and everything else stays the same, and replacing windows. Do you have any questions on this?
Thank you. The drawing is helpful. I will open it up to staff comments first.
Okay. Do you want to go to the next, the finished drawing, or?
Sure.
Okay, there you go. So that shows you just we're moving the altar back and creating the 3 design features on the outside of the building. And I think on the next slide or next page is a side view of the property, or maybe continue on. There you go.
Thank you. All right. Thank you. That is very helpful. It's always good to see the renderings. My sense is it's really going to make it look like a traditional Greek cathedral.
It's getting there, yes.
Excellent. All right, then we'll start with staff comments, and then we can move on to board member some questions. So anything from staff?
Yes, I would just like to mention to the board that this is a limited EIDR, as this is a church. It is a religious use, and so there's only, there's reasonable regulations that can be applied with this approval. The only concerns I had with this project were they had been removing the front entrance, which had a ramp. However, they do have a ramp that's located in the rear of this church. So that alleviated that concern. The second is the proposal to salvage the shrubs. And so I would suggest that if the board does approve this project, that the applicant just provide a backup landscape plan that shows additional plantings in the event that the shrubs don't survive through the summer.
And to that end, we did submit a plan that showed some fencing and some native shrubs as requested as part of our submission.
Thank you.
Yes, they showed the existing shrubs.
Right, so there are the existing shrubs there, and if those shrubs aren't able to be relocated, I think we noted on the plan that what those new shrubs would be for use if the units weren't transplantable.
Yeah, I didn't see that indicated on the plan, but I would just suggest that that it be updated.
We can make that note.
Right. So outside of that, those are the only two suggestions that I had to the board.
Thank you. All right, then at this time I would open it up to board member questions and comments. Sean.
I just agree with Elijah's comments. It looks good to me. Hopefully that's not a constraint on what you're trying to do. I think it looks great overall. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Excited.
Thank you. Any other input from board members? Nope. Yeah, I would echo Sean's comment. It's really nice to see this moving forward in the direction that you've always kind of intended and wanted to go in. So I'm happy to see this in front of us. All right, if there's no other board member comments, as this is a public hearing, I will open this up for public participation. If there's anyone who would like to offer comment or ask a question, feel free to either raise your hand, we will enable you to speak, or you can enter it in the Q&A. Just please remember to include your full name and address. I will give that a moment. I'm not seeing any hands, nor am I seeing anything in the Q&A. So if there's no further discussion, I would I think we have a couple of actions we need to take, but I would happily entertain a motion.
Ellen.
Oh, yes, Maureen.
I just have one quick question. On the front, where you're changing that up and you're getting rid of those steps and that ramp that's in the front, how far or how close are you to the existing driveway when you come out that way? Do you know what I'm like?
Well,
the turnaround or the loop?
I guess I don't know that answer,
Okay.
but we're getting rid of the walkway going to it. I guess I'm not sure what's. I guess I'm not sure the direction of the question either.
No, I was just I was looking at it just to see where the front, how far the front was coming out, and that's coming out another
Oh,
12
it's only
feet.
about, I think it's, Bruce, you can answer that
No,
question. How far is that?
actually, it doesn't come out any further. The staircase comes off and there's only a 7-foot addition from the existing main wall that would project outward. So it's far less than what is there presently as far as the staircase goes.
Oh, okay, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other board member questions or questions from anybody actually at all? Okay, then I think our first action item here is to a motion on waivers.
Yes, yes, and I guess you know, to let the newer members of the board know, typically with these, there is a proposed motion for waivers to grant any waiver requests. And then there is a list of the conditions of approval, and then a motion to close the public hearing. This specifically related to items for the hearing process being the EIDRs or special permits. Let's see. And I have a list of motions here.
I can do it. I move that the planning board grant the following waivers in association with the application for the limited environmental impact and design review EIDR approval for 340 Clapboardtree Street as described in the application, therefore submitted to the planning board and filed in the office of the town clerk on April 30th, 2025. 1. Waiver from strict compliance with section 7.2.7.1.6 of the Westwood zoning bylaw requiring the submission of a stormwater drainage report. 2. Waiver from strict compliance with section 7.2.7.2 of the Westwood zoning bylaw requiring the submission of an exterior lighting plan. 3. Waiver from strict compliance with section 7.2.7.3 of the Westwood zoning bylaw requiring the submission of a full traffic study.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second it.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll take roll call. Mike?
Aye.
Maureen?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. That motion carries. All right. And the next motion?
I'll take this, Sean. I move that the planning board grant the limited environmental impact and design review approval for the construction of an altar area resulting in an additional 120 square feet to the exterior and modify landscaping at 340 Clapboardtree Street as described in the application, therefore submitted to the planning board and filed in the office of the town clerk on April 30, 2025, subject to the following conditions. 1. Except as modified by the conditions and finding hereof, the project shall comply with the project plans and with the conditions of all prior decisions for the property in all respects, and the applicant shall pursue completion of the project with reasonable diligence and continuity. 2, if the project or any condition imposed in this decision requires any other permit, license, or other approval from any town of Westwood board, commission, or agency, or other Commonwealth or federal regulatory agency, the applicant shall make an appropriate application for the same and shall obtain all required approvals prior to the start of any work if any condition of such permit, license, or other approval from any other board, committee, or agency is inconsistent with this decision. The applicant shall make application at the planning board for an amendment of this decision, and the planning board shall consider such application in accordance with the requirements of MGL Chapter 48, Section 9, and all applicable planning board rules and regulations. 3. Any proposed alterations, modifications, deletions, or changes to the decision shall be requested in writing to the town planner and building commissioner prior to the implementation. A, proposed alterations which are considered de minimis by the building commissioner may be accepted as a note to the file. B, proposed alterations which are considered minor by the building commissioner shall require the filing of a modification application of said approval for review by the planning board at a publicly posted planning board meeting. C, proposed alterations which are determined to be major by the building commissioner or by the planning board shall be considered by the planning board as a formal amendment to the approval and will require a new public hearing before the planning board. 4, applicant shall submit a planting schedule and updated site plan for review and approval by the town planner prior to the issuance of a building permit. Said plan will be used in the event the salvage shrubs do not survive. 5, all new landscaping approved herein shall be Massachusetts native species and installed at the earliest possible date, but only during the spring growing season running from April 15 through June 15, or during the fall growing season running from September 15 through November 15. Any plantings that do not survive shall be replaced in kind in perpetuity at the property owner's expense. 6, the applicant shall submit a sign plan for review and approval by the town planner for any signage not included in this application, and shall obtain sign permits from the building division prior to installation of any sign on the property. 7, a copy of this decision and the project plan shall be kept on the project site at all times during construction. 8, all project related construction activities shall comply with the time frame set forth in the town's general bylaws, chapter 292, for noise and construction, which allows such work Monday through Saturday between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. and Sunday between the hours of 12 p.m. and 7 p.m. 9, the decision shall lapse if a substantial use thereof or construction thereunder has not begun, except for good cause, within 2 years following the grant thereof. The planning board may extend such approval for good cause upon the written request of the applicant.
Second the motion.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I feel like reading these is like hazing for new members.
Seriously. All right. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll take roll call. Maureen?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. The motion carries. Thank you for coming this evening and good luck with the work.
We have one more, right?
Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Madam
And then we
Chair,
have,
just
we have one more motion, planning board business.
I move that the planning board close the limited EIDR public hearing for the construction of an altar area resulting in an additional 120 square feet to the exterior and modified landscaping at 340 Clapboardtree Street.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll take roll call. Mike?
Aye.
Maureen?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Motion carries and the public hearing is closed. All right. Thank you all.
And respectfully, I had uploaded a revised planting landscaping plan on May 14th at 11:59 a.m. at the request of the board, and that is in the file presently, but is not the one that you showed us today that did describe what the plantings were as a native species.
all right. I can look into that
Yeah,
and ensure that it meets the needs.
Okay.
So if that's the case, it'll just be that condition satisfied.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Right.
All right. So our next agenda item is scrolling. Would be 1446 High Street. Before we move on to that, just want to check in with the board. Is anyone in favor of a brief bio break before we move on to the final agenda item of the evening, aside from minutes and administrative things?
Sure.
I didn't know if anyone was in need, so.
I'll say yes to it. I'll never say no to that.
All right, then I would entertain a motion to take a 3 to 5 minute break to adjourn and then reconvene by no later than 9:15.
9:15.
So moved.
Okay. Do we need
I
to
have,
second that too?
Yes.
Okay. Second.
I have a motion and a second. I'll take roll call. Sean?
Aye.
Maureen?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. We are briefly in recess to return by no later than 9:15. Members are back, so oh, I just went back. I was going to say refresh my Amanda, refresh my memory. Do we just need to just let the record reflect that the meeting was reconvened at 9:14?
I think you could just do a call to order.
Yeah.
Okay, then at this time, I will call the meeting back to order at 9:15 p.m. Thank you. All right, we'll make sure we have everybody back. Hmm. All right, looks like we have most folks back. Give it another second for Elijah and or Nora, because I think it would be good to have staff back. I can start reading the hearing notice. As this is a public hearing for 1446 High Street. I'll read a portion of the legal notice. The Westwood Planning Board will hold a remote public hearing on June 17th, 2025 at 7 p.m. via Zoom regarding an application filed by Aaron Guazaloca on behalf of Weston and Sampson for consideration of an environmental impact and design review EIDR approval pursuant to section 7.3 of the Westwood zoning bylaw for the purposes of replacing the existing below ground booster pump station with a new approximately 612 square foot above ground booster pump station, approximately 795 square foot bituminous concrete driveway, a generator within a fence enclosure, and an infiltration trench, along with associated grading, landscaping for screening purposes, and utility improvements located on a proposed utility easement in the northern corner of the property at 1446 High Street, Westwood, Mass. 02090, in accordance with PB-25-23. The property is in the single residency SRC zoning district. Land affected, assessors map 35, lot 001, property owner Peter Kevorkian and Patricia A. Giuliano. All right, I really hope I didn't mispronounce anybody's name. If I did, my apologies. Looks like we have some folks from Weston and Sampson and some other folks from Dedham Westwood Water. Welcome, everyone.
Good evening. How you doing? I'm Aaron Guazzaloca from Weston and Sampson. Here tonight on behalf of the Dedham Westwood Water District. And to start our presentation off, well, before we start our presentation, like Stephen Locke Stephen Locke would like to say something to the board.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. I just wanted to give an overview and tell you kind of how we got here and why this is such a critical piece of infrastructure and so important to get this done. I am the operations manager at Dedham Westwood Water District, 25-year employee of the district, including 15 years as the distribution superintendent. In my current position, one of my responsibilities is to identify system deficiencies and seek methods to resolve them. Utilizing our institutional knowledge as well as a periodic study conducted by Weston and Sampson called our Capital Improvement Plan that comes out every 5 years or so. It was determined that the replacement of the existing Burgess Ave booster station with an above ground backup power supply was deemed Dedham Westwood Water District's #1 priority. The Burgess Ave booster station supplies boosted water pressure to higher elevation residents to what we call the Burgess Ave high service area. This zone includes Burgess Ave, Chamberlain Ave, Highview Street, Pheasant Hill Street, June Street, Youngs Road, Blueberry Lane, Stonegate Lane, part of Green Hill Road, and a few houses on High Street. The factors that led to the conclusion for the need of replacement of this station are improved fire protection, provide pumps with backup power supply in the event of an electrical outage, the large number of residents affected by this station, The safety of Dedham Westwood Water District workers and contractors who are in the underground existing vault working, and eliminate the possibility of flooding and debilitating ramifications from a flood to our equipment if the water were to get into the vault. Therefore, the district appropriated funding to resolve these issues back in 2022 with a feasibility study also conducted by Weston and Sampson. We evaluated alternative solutions to the Burgess Ave high service area, which included an additional storage tank, running a water main from the High Rock booster station to along Hartford Street to Burgess Ave, and finally replacing an existing below-ground station with no backup power supply with an above-ground booster station with a fire pump and a backup power supply in the general area of Burgess Ave. The tank and the water main extensions proved cost prohibitive, therefore we focused on replacing the existing station. Initially, 5 locations were evaluated and considered. These attempts on resolving the issue utilizing these 5 locations proved futile due to the various reasons, which included residents not willing to cede or negotiate the purchase of land, no 3-phase power in the area, prohibitive costs, and not having enough land to erect above-ground pump station. Finally, we looked at an area not in the scope of work as a last gasp effort to find a solution. We reached out to the owners of 1446 High Street to see if they would be amenable to granting us an easement on their property. These people, we were very fortunate to meet them. I think they, they're enabling us to reach this point. And they just had a great outlook. They actually, when we presented the possibility of doing that, they said that they wanted to give something back to the community. I don't think you find that in a lot of residents and constituents because, we did have to reach out to others and they were just a pleasure to deal with. So from a public health and safety perspective, I respectfully request this committee look at the big picture and advocate for this project as we attempt to eliminate the very real possible negative outcomes with a solution and benefit to the community of approximately 200 residents that deserve for us to collectively resolve this decades-long deficiency. Thank you for any assistance you can provide to accomplish this most worthy endeavor. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I'd like to share my screen and walk the board through the proposed booster pump station project. So this is 1446 High Street. This is a parcel that encompasses roughly 5.5 acres. It has a 2-story residential structure towards the rear of the lot. It has Mill Brook that runs close to and parallel to High Street at this location. And in this large wooded area in the front of the parcel, this is the area that we propose the replacement booster pump station. You can see this area in greater detail. The location of the existing pump station is located right here. It's at the corner of Burgess Ave and High Street. This project, as it's currently proposed, will result in clearing of about 35, almost 3,600 square feet of wooded area right here. And it will involve the removal of 9 mature trees. Those 9, there's 6 black cherry, 2 red maple, and 1 red oak. Now, this is the site plan for the booster pump station. The building is 34 feet long by 18 feet deep. And this is a rendering from the street of what the proposed pump station would look like. This area over here is the generator, the emergency generator, covered with a screening fence, composites made of aluminum and composite slat. We have proposed evergreen screening shrubbery along the frontage of the property in front of the generator and the building. Now, these plans have changed recently. Recently, we went through Conservation Commission review, and the Conservation Commission requested several changes to the plans. One of them was a request for us to reduce impervious area on site. Now, we feel that the driveway can't be reduced any further in size, that it's currently constitutes what the district will need to operate the pump station. So as a result, we changed from bituminous asphalt pavement to a pervious pavement mixture. And resultingly, we were able to remove the infiltration trench that was previously located at the bottom of the driveway and behind the building. This is the grading plan. This will result in changes of grades of approximately 4.5 to 5 feet. The existing topography on the site drops down pretty significantly, about 6 feet or so, from the back of the sidewalk on High Street down to the interior of the lot. So this project ends up being a fill project. It is going to require, sorry, just trying to reference my earthwork numbers here. Yeah, I believe it's gonna require the importation of 148 cubic yards of material, and this is mostly due to this site. The embankment of the roadway is undocumented fill. So below the building, we have to remove about 6 feet of fill and backfill that with a structural fill material that consists of gravel. So the vast majority of material that we're importing is all subgrade and crushed stone and sand for the construction of the impervious driveway and the foundation for the building. And in response, we will be exporting approximately 111 cubic yards. So overall, it's a slight fill project of about 37 cubic yards. There are numerous resource areas on site, one of which is a FEMA Zone AE with a known base flood elevation. So in an effort to stay out of the floodplain, we propose 2.5 to 1 grading along the rear of the building. As part of this project, there'll also be fairly extensive utility work in the street to connect the new booster pump station to the existing infrastructure and distribution network in the roadway. And for restoration of the area, we're proposing a New England conservation wildlife seed mix to be planted up to where the existing tree line runs. And adjacent to the roadway in this existing grass strip, we're proposing to replace it in kind with a lawn seed mixture. And we specify that all seed mixtures must be, it's not there. Grass seed mixture shall only contain Massachusetts native grass species. So we were very aware of that and proposing any plantings on site. All shrub and tree plantings were pulled from the Conservation Commission's guidelines on tree cutting and replacement. I don't recall the exact name of the set of guidelines, but we chose all high value habitat shrubbery to plant along the rear of the site, and trees to plant around the periphery to replace. Now, we're aware that there's a 2-to-1 replacement ratio for trees cut down, and technically we need to replace or plant 18 trees, but we feel like we can only safely fit 14 trees here, because we want to give the trees enough spacing between them so they don't crowd each other out and don't survive. We'd like to provide the best circumstances for the trees to actually survive and grow. So we planted what we could in the interior of the site, just 5 trees in the area that we're clearing. And then we proposed as many trees that we could fit on the northeastern side of the property line up to the 25-foot no disturb zone. And in lieu of when I say it was 14, I believe we're proposing 14 trees. So since we're 4 trees short, we proposed 16 high value shrubs along the rear of the lot, comprised of serviceberry, American hazelnut, and gray dogwood. I would like to add that the Conservation Commission, while not formally approving these, they've endorsed them, and they are waiting to provide formal approval based upon this project receiving approval through Planning Board and Zoning. Are there any questions?
I'm going to guess yes, but before I take the reins back, was there any other material you wanted to present? I don't want to cut you off.
Aaron, if I may, you had referenced a rendering, but I didn't see a rendering on the screen. Is that something that maybe you can pull up?
Is it visible?
No.
Nope. Am I sharing the wrong? All right.
We still see the.
You might be sharing a specific window instead of the whole screen.
Is that showing now?
Still seeing the landscaping plan slide.
Yeah, well, that's okay. That's strange.
It may help to stop the share and then reshare it with the specific drawing.
How about now?
Yes.
Okay. So the pump station will be, it's going to be a precast concrete. It'll have a textured wall painted to resemble siding on a residential structure. We'll have a shingled roof. And as I mentioned earlier, it'll be 34 feet long. This is the generator area over here where we have our screening enclosure fence. We're proposing a composite fencing system with a variety of colors for slats to they're over here in front of the generator on the property line. We have a series of evergreen shrubs proposed, screening shrubs, as well as along the front of the building.
Thank you. Okay, I'll ask the same question. Before I take the reins back and start asking questions, was there anything else you wanted to present? Because I don't want to cut you off.
No, I believe that's it.
Okay, fabulous.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's start with staff comments and then we can move on to board member comments.
Yes. So I do think that it's clearly a utility that would serve the neighborhood well. I think that the changes made via the Conservation Commission help with the drainage on the site. There is, I think the only concern that I see from my perspective is the screening that was shown in the previous rendering. I would suggest the board consider a stockade fence in addition to better screen the pump station from the street and additional evergreens planted as well.
Thank you. All right, I'll open up the floor to board member questions, comments.
Madam Chair, just one other thing. They'll be going before the Zoning Board of Appeals tomorrow night, and so if the board is inclined to approve this project, I would ask that you keep the public hearing open and continue the public hearing portion of this to allow for any potential site changes.
Understood. Thank you. All right. Any thoughts from my colleagues? Sean.
I'll jump right in with just a few. And as my colleagues know, I can tend to be a bit sensitive to things that are on High Street, and particularly given the reduced setback here. It's one of our main thoroughfares on that side of town. I'm always want to make sure we take the aesthetic considerations into account. Quick question for you. That front door for the building, does it have to be on the front side or was the back side considered as well?
Mike, do you care to chime in? Okay.
Sorry, I was trying to find my unmute button.
No worries.
Was the double door? I mean, I do think we need a double door for the pump station for operations maintenance.
Size is fine. It's more like location on front versus back.
Front versus back. I'm trying to think here. What's on the inside?
I can try to pull the process plans up if you like.
No, I just am trying to. There's piping on that back wall, and we're trying to fit in this the bathroom that's required per plumbing code. So, I think I thought that there was I thought we had considered it and we had eliminated it, but I am trying to, I'm not remembering exactly why it was deemed to stay on the front. I think more, I guess aesthetics for, maybe looking like a, more of a small building or a small,
Like a small house or something like that.
small
Yeah.
house that the door would tend to be on the front.
Okay, and I think my thought there was the door as is I think fairly industrial looking. If whether there's a type of frame you can put around it or consider moving it to the back if you think it's not going to interfere with something or the operational kind of flow of the site, and then replace it with a third window just to, I think keep it as residential looking as possible. That's my sort of initial comment on that. That might be something you need to look at, I recognize.
Well, I think the issue in the rear of the building would be there's not a lot of space.
Right.
We don't,
Yeah,
I
I'm
mean, the
seeing that
scale
now.
is kind of deceptive here because it's blown up. This is 10 scale. This is not a lot of space between the floodplain here.
Right.
So we might possibly be able to accommodate a walkway back here for a door, but it'd be very tight and it'd be right on the edge of a steep slope.
Yeah, maybe that won't work. And I don't know if it's easy to build just like an extra kind of white trim around the door or just something that gives it a little bit more of the kind of frame that you might see in a nearby residence or something. I'm not trying to
More
put
aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah, that would be my first thought there. You'll have to look into it and see if there's something appropriate for the door size. And perhaps painting the door as well. Like I think if you're going with yellow on the siding, like I think about the traditional, we get a lot of like yellow with that kind of dark side, kind of natural green color as sort of an accent on it. I don't know if we have too many options on door color, but the green might look a little more demure, and particularly if it's screened with some extra shrubs, I think that would look nice.
Yeah, a little more sure.
So, yeah, any questions on those comments?
No, I don't believe so. I mean, if Elijah wants or could Elijah clarify when you mentioned a stockade fence? Do you mean across the frontage of the property? That's what I assumed it was. You meant. So I think that shouldn't
Yeah,
be much of an issue if we go with the stockade fence in front of the building, in addition to the screening plantings.
Yeah.
that was my suggestion to the board, is that there be a stockade fence, and then literally, where the shrubs are, fill the gap there, and follow it along the fence.
I'll give my personal opinion. Like,
That I don't think so.
I don't think it's like, I think the building's kind of cute. Maureen, sorry, I know you'll want to jump in with comments here.
No,
I think,
no, you're good.
I think the building's kind of cute as is, like a couple of additional treatments to the facade of the building, and I'm not sure a fence is totally needed. I love shutters. If you ever want to throw shutters on those windows, I will take it. Nobody's taken me up on that yet, but I'll throw that out there, universe. If and like the overhead light on there, if you want to change it out for something that again a little less industrial, you might not be able to, given kind of what you need and the budget you're on. But if there's just something kind of nice and old small town feeling, I'll just throw that into the universe as well. So in those cases, like, does it need a fence? I'm curious what my fellow board members think, but I'm not sure it does. The screening's nice to have always. We love plants.
Thanks, Sean. Maureen.
Yeah. How far back is the building set from the edge of the sidewalk? Then that kind of might make me make a decision about whether a fencing should go in there with the shrubs. Like from here, from the edge of the sidewalk to where the front and the shrubs are.
I'd say it's roughly about 20 feet. We're 15 feet
It
in
looks
off the
short.
property
Okay.
line. I'm guessing that might be around 5 feet. I'll try to give a rough measurement right now. Oops. Yeah, it's roughly about 19.5, 20 feet-ish.
Yeah, it looks deeper than the picture shows. Yeah, I agree with Sean that I think aesthetically that door kind of does look industrial, but I don't know what else you can replace it with. And I think the smaller shrubs, I know they will grow, so they'll look nicer. And I don't know. I don't know whether the stockade fence would look funny behind that, the shrubs. But that's just my
Yeah,
thought.
you might like if you got a fence there, it might feel like there's just sort of this building peeking out over the
Yeah,
fence.
like the
It's
little
not
top
a,
roof.
well, not a bad suggestion, probably something we'd normally go for. Maureen kind of charged a follow-on question for me, like could any of the trees go up front? And I recognize there's the utility pole issue, but is there enough space for that or no?
No, that's the exact issue. The fact that there's overhead utility lines running above this grass strip. So that was naturally one of the first areas we looked at, but we don't want to cause any issues. Yeah, this grass strip is only about 2.5 to 3 feet wide.
The shrubs you've picked right now, do you know the maximum height those will grow to?
Well, we're specifying a common juniper species, but a species that will grow to at least 6 feet, mature height.
And how tall is the building?
I believe it's around 16.5 feet, but yeah, 16 feet, 9 inches, 9.5 inches.
To the roof.
Yeah, to the top of the roof.
But the building itself is 10 feet, right?
Yes, 10
Or
feet,
close
10
to it.
inches.
Yeah.
10 feet is.
Okay.
Any other board member questions, comments, thoughts? Mike?
Yeah, I was wondering, was there consideration given to the color of the fencing on the other side, and how it juxtaposes with the building itself? At first glance, it doesn't seem like those colors, go as well as maybe some other colors could go. I'm curious if that was an intentional decision or if there was, deeper thought put into how those colors kind of interact.
No, the color's not finalized. I know this particular manufacturer has a variety of colors that they provide, so and it can be chosen, based. I would want it to be I would think it should be coordinated with the building color. If the building, if the building color is this yellow, we could find a lighter or darker wood grain color to replace it with. I mean, we're not. We're not. It doesn't really matter to us. Whatever is the most aesthetically pleasing. We don't want it to be an eyesore for the neighbors to look at. So.
Yeah, I'm curious, is there like a design, is there like someone at your firm that kind of specializes in design and making things look, having a certain feel? Is that something, I don't know if there's someone who like takes a specific look at that, or if that's just our job to try to gin up at this meeting.
We can certainly have someone, we do have people on staff that can do that.
Yeah, I don't think
this isn't
the color scheme hasn't been chosen.
Okay.
So I think, as Aaron was probably about to say, we can look into it. Sorry, Aaron.
No problem. I was just gonna say, civil engineers aren't known for maybe the best aesthetic choices.
And while you're at it, paint the fire hydrant shallow, huh?
Yeah.
Color coordinated.
Right. Sean, is that a new hand or is that a legacy hand?
Oh.
That's a new hand, but I also saw
Mine go-
Maroon's up
mine-
before me. If
No, I
yours
have it
was a
upside
legacy.
down.
Okay, cool. I
Thank you.
was going to suggest on the fence, like if you want it to be as demure as possible, like is there some sort of, I call it like no-see-um green, like kind of just blends into the trees or the forest in the background. Maybe you have some guys at the firm you can talk to and get someone at the firm you can talk to and get some recommendations, but that would just be one suggestion. Or otherwise kind of match one of the trim colors on the building isn't so bad.
Yeah, certainly. We'll have someone look at it, the color choices, and
sounds good.
You know, and ensure everything's pleasing to look at.
Yep. I will. Let's see. I'll just to solidify a few other things. I think I'd agree with, even if you don't, with respect to like the fence issue up front. Again, don't. My colleagues question me if you think I'm on the wrong track here. I think the fence makes sense if you can't plan really too many aesthetic improvements to the front of the building. If you can juice up the front of the building enough, I think a fence is avoidable, though I'd still recommend Elijah's recommendation, which is some more shrubs just to kind of make it more of a nice screening barrier. And then I also kind of one note on the lighting plan, and I'm not so concerned about things kind of further back on the property, but that one light that's kind of right above the door up there. If there's any chance you can find something that's like closer to kind of 3000 K warmth and lighting versus 4000, so something a little warmer. I think that again fits the residential vibe a little more, especially given how close that'll be to the street. That said, I recognize it's all kind of low profile lighting, and don't know if that's an option for you given the products on the market. So I was gonna throw that comment into the universe as well. Let me see if I have anything else. Quick note on natural features. Are you removing any trees above like 12-inch size?
Yes, I believe 9.
Okay, above like 12-inch diameter breast height. Okay.
Yes, I believe every tree we surveyed is 12 inches or above. There are 9 of
Okay.
them.
Okay. That's good to know. You might just ask the Concom if that has any impacts for them, though I know that they've discussed this already at least one go around and seem to have some baseline level of comfort with what you were doing. So that sounds good. And no trees up front. And then are you doing any invasives removal? Like maybe you haven't found that in the property. I just wanted to check since I see a lot of kind of noxious vines around town. And whenever we do these types of projects that have kind of near wetland impacts, it's nice to see some invasives removal.
As far as I know, our wetland scientists haven't identified any invasives out.
Okay, sounds good. All right. That's the extent of my comments right now. And one more is the siding, the precast concrete. Is it like a clapboard style or is it kind of like a Dutch lap?
Clapboard.
Okay, great.
It'll be a
Fully
clapboard
endorsed.
mold. Sorry.
Or clapboard, what'd you say?
It's molded into the concrete, so
It's molded into the concrete. Okay.
but it actually looks quite from the
Realistic.
street. You won't be able to tell with it painted.
No, I'm happy with that. I'm not a big fan of vinyl siding for high street stuff projects, but the concrete should work well. Okay, cool. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other thoughts from board members? No. Nora and Elijah, both hands went up. I'm not sure whose hand was first. I'll start with Nora and then we'll go to Elijah.
Sure.
Elijah's nodding.
Mine is just very quick. I see that your plans call for faux windows, and I wondered if you could explain what that is. Will they be spandrel panels or glass with a board on the inside, or exactly what do you mean by faux windows? Or are they just faux double hung? Is that what you mean? They're actually glass you can see through, but they're not true double hung.
It'll just be a carpenter. I don't know window terminology, but so I might get this quite a little bit wrong. But you won't be able to see through it. It'll just be um, it made to look like a window mounted on the side of the building.
It will have glass or a glass-like material.
I do not believe it'll have glass. I would have to look and see what the architects has called out as far as
I think that would be significant to
that,
the
that would be,
impact of the structure that close to the street.
yeah, I would, if there was, and that would be points in favor of a fence if we, if for some reason you couldn't do glass on those windows. Again, I'd advocate for glass, even if what's behind it isn't really see-through, but that's a great catch, Nora. Thank you.
So you would want to see actual glass as part of the window?
I think you could use spandrel glass. I know there are a couple of examples of buildings elsewhere in town. In fact, our police station, I think, has, and maybe even the library building, have some places where windows are spandrel glass, so you can't actually see through them. It's a colored, clouded glass, more like a tile, but it gives the appearance of a window without being able to see through it. So I think that's one option, or a true window, but with something inside, a panel inside, so you couldn't actually see into the structure.
Yeah, I think we're worried about security, obviously, and then there's the wall space is at a premium on the inside, so that was one of the reasons for the faux windows was.
Or need I say, if you had shutters, functional shutters, you could close them. That would be entirely consistent. I'm half joking, but.
Maybe you could provide a mock-up for the town planner to review.
Sure thing.
Sure.
Thank you. Elijah, I see you waiting patiently.
Yes, so we did receive a few comments from our peer review engineers at Beta via the on-call engineering service. I'll just we received them via email on Thursday the 29th. I will try to share my screen to and capture them, or well, I'll just read them through. Number one, the generator fuel source. Please specify the proposed generator's fuel type. Confirmation is requested as to whether a diesel-powered unit is planned. For the zoning setback compliance, the proposed structure is sited within the required front yard setback. Please confirm whether zoning relief such as a variance has been obtained or is being sought. They are going before the board tomorrow night. Regulatory permitting, notice of intent, clarification is requested regarding the applicability of a notice of intent under the Massachusetts Wetland Protections Act. The project involves the construction of a building and associated impervious surfaces within the 100-foot riverfront area. They did go before the Conservation Commission for approval. Number four, groundwater determination methodology. While test borings being conducted in the field, groundwater elevation was inferred based on qualitative observations of soil moisture. This method may not accurately reflect the seasonal high groundwater table. It is recommended that a certified soil evaluator verify groundwater elevation in accordance with standard regulatory practices. And finally, the infiltration rate assumptions. The applicant has utilized an infiltration rate of 2.41 inches an hour based on NRCS hydrologic soil group A/D classification. However, field observations indicate the presence of silty sand, clay sand, and fine grained soils, which may significantly reduce infiltration capacity. The assumed rate appears unreasonably high for the observed soil conditions. A more conservative rate supported by appropriate testing is recommended. I can make sure that these are available for review as we are keeping the public hearing portion open if the board is so inclined. And I would just put that forth for the applicant's team to know.
Thank you. Any other thoughts from my colleagues, including staff? Anyone? Amanda.
I did pull up a street view of the police station so you can see what Nora was talking about with the spandrel glass for reference. So these panels aren't actually windows in the middle. Is that what you're referring to, Nora?
Yes, that's it. And we have the same in the library. They're just a lighter color. Here they're gray. In the library, they're kind of like a very pale, a blue-green. But it gives the sheen of windows and it gives the appearance of windows, but you can't see through them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? I have a few, but I want to make sure everyone else has a chance before I jump. I'm not seeing any. Okay. First, I personally take an interest in plantings, and I was appreciative of your native planting list. They were actually all Massachusetts native. The one that wasn't super specific was the serviceberry. It just kind of said a serviceberry species. So I would just ask that you do ensure that it's a Massachusetts serviceberry. There are some that are New England, but not necessarily Massachusetts. And but the rest of your list is outstanding. I really appreciate the native grasses because that's something that a lot of people don't think to include as native. So nice job. I think I'm in agreement with my colleagues. I'm struggling with the door and the light. I love the idea that it looks like a cute little house, and I love the textured concrete because that's kind of a win-win. It will look like clapboard, but is far more durable. The door and that overhead light, which I understand for functionality, they look the way they do, but particularly on High Street, I'm struggling with the aesthetics of those. So I'm kind of like, if you can't do something with that within budget and within function, I think I would be leaning more towards a fence because you can't put a shrub in front of the door. So I'd like to, if that door and that light above it can't look any more, for lack of a better word, residential, I think I don't want to see them at all. So I'm open to either direction on that, but the current design I'm not super excited about. And the generator fence, I have a slightly, it's not even just the color that is bothering me about that. I appreciate that you did a really nice job screening that. But if we're trying to make this fit into a residential neighborhood that is, kind of an older neighborhood, that fence looks really modern to me. I think I'd rather see something that looks more like some of the other, even like a white vinyl fence. And I'll leave that up to you, but something that looks more like what some of the homes on the street are using for fencing. It just kind of jumped out as like not really being cohesive with the neighborhood and even with the design of the building that you've made, because I think the design of the building is cohesive overall with the neighborhood. That generator fence jumped out at me as not. I expected to see that next to a mid-century modern house. It just didn't fit for me. So if there's not even just the color, but kind of the design, maybe more of a vertical slat rather than horizontal, just something that looks a little bit more New Englandy, like other things on the street. Overall, though, I appreciate what you've done, and I think you've done a nice job trying to meet the functional needs of what you're trying to do with the aesthetic needs of the fact that it's in the middle of a residential neighborhood on a main road. So that was all I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
I see two hands go up. I'll do Nora and then back to Sean. You're muted, Nora. Still muted, Nora. We're not hearing all the good stuff. Sorry.
Let Sean go first, please.
Okay, Sean.
Okay, yeah, and first of all, Ellen, those were great comments. And then one more small recommendation, and you all can come back and say no to this. This will matter to me. If you can even edge the pitch of the roof up slightly, to be a bit more in common with a lot of the kind of roof pitches we typically see on High Street, I'm appreciative. Recognize that that's not a must-have, but it's a nice to have. And then I also wanted to give you all a chance to ask any questions of us if you thought there was anything we were missing or didn't provide enough clarity on, just to be helpful and expedite this next time we see it.
Thank you. All good. And Nora.
So my question is about the site where the existing pump station is. When you build this new one, what are your plans for the old location, which is within the public right of way?
The old pump station will be abandoned, pulled, backfilled. I believe it's in the sidewalk, so the sidewalk would be restored.
Okay,
But
so
like
it's an asphalt sidewalk now, so it's not actually a walking area because your pump is there, so it doesn't actually function as a sidewalk. But that was my question, just whether you would be returning it to asphalt sidewalk or would you be putting landscaping in that location?
I think the intent was to just match the existing what was there.
Thank you.
We're moving the hatch and there's the bollards, so remove that, but then everything else would remain as is.
Thank you.
Nora, excellent question. Anything else? Any other further discussion from any entity on this call on this particular issue?
I would just note that the generator is proposed to be diesel. I think that was a question from the peer reviewer, so it was proposed to be diesel.
Thank you. This may be a question we don't have an answer to, but with that information, are there, from staff or board members, is there any discussion around that? Any concerns? Does that change anything from our perspective?
Elijah, I see you're muted.
It's been happening a lot tonight. So is that regarding the diesel? Is that the question, Madam Chair?
Yeah, just now that we have an answer to that, as far as, because the peer reviewer suggested we get some clarification there, does that raise any additional discussion from the board's perspective or from staff's perspective?
There was no additional advice or guidance. I think it was more of a specifying question.
Great. That's all I wanted to know. Thank you. I do see, I'm going to butcher your name. I'm sorry, Mr. Lucas?
Yep, that's correct. So
right.
I just wanted to clarify that the diesel generator was discussed at the Conservation Commission. Obviously, being in a resource area, it was very important to them. So we did discuss with them that it would be a double-lined diesel tank, and it will have protection to make sure that leaking would not, containment is what you would call it, right? We would prefer natural gas. However, there is no natural gas in High Street in that area. So unfortunately, we were pushed in this direction. But I thought it was important to note that Conservation Commission did review this as well.
That's reassuring to hear you have containment. And I'm not a generator expert, but would propane have been an option or not so much?
It is possible, but I believe that the propane tank would have been a little bit more cumbersome than the diesel tanks are. The diesel tanks come integrated within the generators themselves, so everything will be within that small area, whereas a propane tank would have to be a completely separate entity, and now we'd have one more thing that we'd have to try to hide and screen on site.
Understood. Thank you. Nora, yes.
In relation to the generator, I just wanted to remind the board, you often have a condition on projects using generators for the operation and testing of the generator for non-emergency situations in the afternoon, sometime between noon and 3 on a weekday as your typical requirement.
Thank you. And I personally would advocate for that, given that it's literally in front of a residential property and abuts residential properties on 3 out of 4 sides. So I think that's a good idea in this case, and consistent with what we typically do. Thank you. Any other discussion around this?
One more question for Nora, Madam Chair. You made the comment about the existing pump station site, and I think I missed where that site is. Is that on the vicinity of the same property or elsewhere?
It's across the street, so it's on the corner of Burgess and High Street, going up Burgess on the right-hand side. So it's just outside the parking lot of the Banfield Veterinary Building.
I see. Okay.
And
It's very close to the road. It's where a sidewalk would be if there was a sidewalk there.
I
There is
see.
an asphalt sidewalk further up.
I see it exactly. Okay, I'm looking at Google Maps. So your advocacy would be kind of keep that paved so it can almost serve as a continuation of the sidewalk, or would you,
I
from your
would
perspective-
actually, so I don't have, I'm not overly concerned with it being paved, but I would want it to be treated in a way that is not used as a driveway. So
Okay.
right now it's a difficult situation where we have that veterinary building with parking both on High Street, backing into High Street and backing into Burgess. And I think it would be a complication to traffic in that area if cars could then come over the asphalt right into the intersection. So I would encourage looking at that carefully with DPW. Returning to asphalt is fine, but I think it'll either need some type of curbing or striping or something to, or even bollards again, something to prevent cars from exiting the veterinary clinic or cutting through to avoid the light. I can't imagine why anyone would do that, but I would just have some safety concerns.
And if a natural option is, I guess it'd be contingent on a discussion with DPW, because could be a great place for a little bit of landscaping restoration, some nice greenery along the side of the road, and
It could be a place for a street tree. You'd
Yes.
want to, the hydrant will remain, the signal
Okay.
box will remain. So
I
it's
see.
just those bollards and the actual pump.
So sort of,
pump
yeah,
that's
the space between the pedestrian kind of traffic sign and the box. I see. Okay.
That's
I
a
mean,
really helpful. I'm sorry, Sean. I didn't mean to cut
Oh no, I'll let you talk, Alan, too, because you're probably on the same wavelength as me here.
that I think that's a really excellent suggestion, Nora, because I used to use that I don't anymore, but I can absolutely see that parking lot is difficult and the parking's limited, and trying to get back out onto 109 when you're leaving can be a real challenge. So I could see, if that's not impossible to get through, that people will start using it as egress in a way that wouldn't be appropriate. So I think that's tangential in some ways to our conversation, but really important for the project overall. So thank you for bringing that up,
And
Sean.
would that need to be covered at all under anything about that with conditions under this project, or as part of the kind of site plan review for this project, or is that sort of a separate conversation between the town and?
So I think you could have a condition on your approval decision requiring the applicant to coordinate with the town DPW on the final treatment of that area after the old pump is removed.
Okay. Okay, great.
Excellent. I appreciate everyone sticking out this discussion. It seems like we're trying to get all of this done in this meeting. So I appreciate people. You know, we've been on this topic for a while, but I think that's a good thing. So I appreciate everyone's patience. Any other discussion around this, or would folks like to move to a motion?
I would just like to state
you're
that
muted.
I believe we've addressed most of Beta's concerns. I think all of them with our revised submission, which I don't believe they had a chance to review.
Thank you. Jess, I saw you trying to say something, but you were muted, but I happily recognize you.
Are you going to take public comment?
Oh, yes, thank you.
I would like
run long.
I would like to make a public comment when you're ready to do that.
If we're done with board member comments, then it would be the perfect time to move on to public comment. I don't see any other board member hands up. So then I will open the floor to public comment. As always, full name and address, please. You can either raise your hand to speak or enter your public comment in the Q&A section. Jess.
Jessica Cole, 23 Eastman Avenue. I just had the one question. So you said you were removing the trees and you were only putting back 14, but you were removing 18. Is that correct?
We're removing 9 trees.
Oh, but you have to do 18 because you double the amount, but you're
Yeah.
only going to be putting up 14 back. We have, I don't know if this is a place where we could use the tree fund. That's my question. If we can use those 4 additional trees to a tree fund or across the street.
So the tree requirement, the 2-for-1 requirement, is a requirement of the Conservation Commission, not necessarily of the Planning Board. And I do expect that they will require a donation to the tree fund.
Thank you. That was a good question. All right, so I'll leave public comment open for another moment or two. See if anyone else would like to comment on this item. You can either raise your hand or enter it in the Q&A. I'm seeing neither. All right, I think it's safe to move forward. Any further discussion from board member, staff? Anybody? Yes.
One more thought. I don't,
Excuse me.
you know, sense of the board here. I don't think we see any major issues with the types of things that would probably be the purview of the ZBA. Is that correct? Like setbacks and all of that. I just say that to help the applicant be prepared going into their ZBA meeting. I certainly don't from my end, but I just wanted to flag it really quick.
No, that's a good point. The only real relief you need is for the front setback. Am I correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And it looked like you're going to be maintaining about 20 feet from, rather than the, what is it, the 40 that's required?
Yes, 40 is required. We're 15 from the property line.
15 from the property line. And then it was what, 20 including what would be the town's right of way?
Well, the back of the sidewalk.
Okay.
It's 15 to the town's right away.
Okay. Okay. But we're not talking about, you're not
roughly
going to be
20
5
to the
feet.
back of the sidewalk.
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Yeah. It's not like you're going to be right on the sidewalk. You're not talking about coming up 5 feet from the sidewalk.
No.
Yeah. Okay. I don't have any concerns. Does anybody else have any concerns with what would be the necessary relief?
And that would be taken care of by the zoning board tomorrow night to make sure everything is okay with that.
Yes.
So the zoning board tomorrow night will consider 2 applications or 2 parts of this application. One is a special permit for the use itself, and the other is a variance for the front setback. In order to grant a variance, the zoning board has to determine that this property is unique and therefore available for variance, and then they have to determine hardship. So those are points that are fully within the ZBA's discretion and really not anything that this board would take up.
Thanks, no.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. If there's no further discussion and we've entertained public comment, if there's no further discussion amongst us, Mike. Yes.
Will there be a review of sort of the aesthetic considerations we discussed by the planning board before kind of, the project's finally approved, or is the motions and vote tonight that might be proposed handle that? I'm just curious what
I'm guessing we continue tonight and then have another meeting on this one. Is that not to use?
Yeah, thank you.
Is that, if I'm here, is that kind of the ask so that we could review any changes based on the feedback we gave before we gave the final approval? Is that the ask, or do we want to approve with conditions and then just, what are people comfortable with?
I'd like to see this one more time myself.
I agree.
I agree too. The
We can
final
do that.
product.
I think we're going to leave the hearing open anyway, pending if the zoning board process required any additional changes. But if that's what folks would like to do, I think we're going to keep the hearing open anyway. So I think that would be fine. Yes, staff?
I think that's fine, but I would recommend that you instruct Elijah to inform the zoning board of the concerns that were expressed tonight and the ways that those will be met, and let the zoning board know that you're on the path to granting the EIDR approval for this with those conditions.
All right. If that is amenable to the board and to staff, I think that sounds like the way that this board would like to proceed.
I concur.
I don't know if that may warrant a change to the motion. I'm sure I want to give Elijah a minute. I see him typing.
Yes, just making an update right now.
Sure. I'm tempted to sing the Jeopardy theme, but I don't want to apply any pressure. So.
Right. Okay, let's see. All right, let me share the motion.
Thank you.
Oh.
Right. I move that the planning board continue the public hearing for consideration of the EIDR approval of the pump station and the utility easement at 1446 High Street as described in the application, therefore submitted to the planning board and filed in the office of the town clerk on May 15th, 2025 to Tuesday, July 8th, 2025 at 7 p.m. via Zoom, where a Zoom link and associated call-in numbers will be provided on the town's calendar on the homepage at westwoodma.gov.
Second the motion.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I have one quick question just for clarity. Nora, did we need to codify your suggestions for Elijah in this motion, or can that just be?
You could just give Elijah that direction. You don't have to put it in the motion.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, then I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll take roll call. Mike?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Maureen?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. That motion carries and this public hearing is continued. All right, and Elijah, as noted, please share with the ZBA as Nora so eloquently described where we are at.
Will do.
All right, and thank you to the applicant team. I hope this was helpful, and we appreciate your time. As I said, I know this ran long, but hopefully we've shared everything that you need to kind of close the loop on this the next time we see you, and we can move forward.
No, thank you very much for your insight, and we'll look forward to bringing our comments and changes back to you.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Take care.
There. All right, our next agenda item is minutes. Minutes from the May 27th, 2025 meeting. We have a draft to review. Did everyone get a chance to look at the minutes? Did anyone have any comments or changes they wanted to request? All right, seeing none, then I would entertain a motion to accept. Do we have a motion? I won't make one up if we have one. There we go.
I move that the planning board approve the minutes for the meeting of May 27th, 2025 as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll take roll call. Maureen?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Motion carries. All right. Our next agenda item is updates from agency and committee representatives. Has anyone been to any meetings that they would like to share? Maureen?
Went to the WIAC, excuse me. And there was a few things, or you know how we're all getting the new stickers on top of our barrels to tell us what not to put in the recycle bins. That's something they'll be out doing to everybody's barrels. So that reminds you not to put stuff in. And then there was something they wanted to do with the what's that fair in September at the high school? I'm having a brain drain. What do they call it?
Westwood Day? Westwood Day.
Thank you. That should have come to me real quick, huh? So yeah, they were just doing thinking of a few things to do for there, but other than that, they're okay.
Excellent. Thank you for taking the time to attend.
Mhm.
Anyone else been to any other meetings? Elijah?
Yes. So along the lines of WEAC, I did meet with a few of the members, and we're trying to help coordinate with the health department on ways to implement composting stations at Westwood Day. And so they're working that out. I think they have to go through the recreation department to get final approval. And I did attend the trick meeting this morning. They had it at the Walpole Senior Center, which I might add is pretty snazzy. I was very impressed for a community center there. But they were pretty much going. There was a review of the different trail systems around the towns in the area, as well as we got into some discussion about trying to map out ADA compliant playgrounds and recreation areas to kind of have that as a tool or resource for those looking for ADA compliant recreation.
Great, thank you. Anyone? Yes, Amanda.
The housing partnership is meeting next Thursday, the 26th. I'll be presenting the goals and implementation strategies based on what the members discussed at the previous meeting and internal discussions with staff, and then just fine tuning them. And then at that point, we'll be ready to finalize the plan to ultimately be voted on by the housing partnership and then you guys as well. So we are nearing the end.
Great, thank you.
Congratulations.
Yeah, nice work. Any other updates from other agencies or committees? I haven't been to anything else, so I have nothing to share. All right. Then we also have miscellaneous updates, general miscellaneous updates and administrative items. Anything from staff aside from what we've already discussed?
One point of clarification. So I've been referring to EIDR sections as section 7.2.xxx. That's because the at town meeting with the update and removing the the major business portion
Development.
of the, yeah, thank you. Losing words at this point. Major business development. In removing that section, it kind of bumped up all the following sections. And so just want to make that clarification to anyone looking for anything, that's kind of, it's not updated in the plans right now. We still have to get it approved by the AGO, so it'll get, I guess, at quickest, it would be the end of September where we'd get a comment from the Attorney General.
Ah, gotcha. Thank you. So it's kind of in flux currently.
Right.
Understood. Thank you. That's helpful. Any other kind of miscellaneous or administrative updates? All right, then our final agenda item is our list of upcoming meetings. We have a board meeting on July 8th, 2025, a board meeting on July 29th, 2025, and then August 19th, 2025. We have a full summer. All right. Well, with that, unless anyone has anything else, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I can't make the motions. Thank
I
you.
seconded it already. My voice is getting weak.
Well, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on adjournment? Seeing none, I'll take roll call. Maureen.
Aye.
Mike.
Aye.
Sean.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah,
Enjoy your
thank you.
evening. What's
Good night.
left in it?